Welcome. So today, we are continuing to dive into the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, and we are exploring the world soul and the cosmic egg. Really, the portion that we're diving in today has to do with the birth of the universe. So it's going to be a really interesting stream and a very important stream as we discover what the Rosicrucians thought about the birth of the universe, how the universe began, and then we're going to take it apart using Hyperionism and ontological mathematics to really understand this better, and infinitely better than you can using, say, metaphor and symbolism. We are going to see how the cosmic egg is an excellent metaphor and an excellent symbol for understanding the birth of the universe. So we're going to take a look at that ancient occult symbol as well, see what it has to do with the birth of the universe, and see what the Rosicrucians say about it as well. And most importantly, we're going to dive into it using logic and reason through the lens of Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, so that we can have a understanding of these ideas rather than just relying on metaphor. Because as you'll see, they are very, very interesting, but it can be very difficult to wrap your mind around without that rigorous underlying mathematical structure, and our compass of logic and reason, as always, will show us how to navigate and understand this extremely important concept. So let's begin. We're going to be diving into the birth of the universe, the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, and the cosmic egg. Remember that as we go, you can use the super chat feature to ask questions, so please do. That always helps very much, and is how I'm able to do my work and what I do. Let me jump into the comments real quick and say hello to everyone before we get started. Let me jump in. Hello, hello. And right away, Timothy Webster, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Let's see who is here today. Let me change this to the live chat, by the way. Apologies that I used to only have the top chat selected. Randall Roth, thank you for helping us wake up the world. What do I think about, what's the question? Whoa, those comments are going by real quick. I think it's updating because I selected to go to the live chat. What was it about Celine Dion's line of non-binary clothing? I have no idea. I've never heard of that, my friend. I think that's cool, though, that non-binary is getting a mainstream representation. I don't know anything about Celine Dion or her line, so I can't comment on that. But as most of you know, I do identify as non-binary, so anytime that is getting recognition, I think that's a good move forward. So can't say directly on that, but in general, I think it's very interesting. So hello everyone, big shout out to our moderators here, Rowan, Susan, Megan, Azure. So good to see everyone, all of you here, and apologies that I'm a little late. My internet was being really weird. I don't know why, so I had to restart my router and fix that. But everything should be going just fine now. So, and we have people talking about flat Earth. No, flat Earth does not play a part in Hyperionism. So, we will start. Let's jump right into it. Oh, someone says, my name is Daryl. I'm from Facebook. Welcome, welcome. If you're from Facebook, come on over and subscribe on YouTube, and I'll shout you out if I see it. All right, let's begin, shall we? We're going to start here, as always, with our book reading as we jump into the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians. This is the soul of the world. In the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, we find the following second aphorism. The germ within the cosmic egg takes unto itself form. The flame is rekindled. Time begins, a thing exists, action begins, the pairs of opposites spring into being, the world's soul is born, and awakens into manifestation. The first rays of the new cosmic day break over the horizon. And what we're going to see here is we're going to read exactly what the Rosicrucians say about this. Then we're going to go over it again in terms of Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, so we can get a much better understanding and not have to rely on so much of this watery metaphor. She-Wolf, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Says, much love, Morgue, mods, and Hyperion community. Thanks for joining us, She-Wolf. So, in the second aphorism of creation, the Rosicrucian is directed to apply his attention to the concept of the world's soul, the first manifestation of the eternal parent. And once again, if this sounds hard to grasp or strange at first, don't worry, just stick with it. I'm going to reinterpret it all via Hyperionism and ontological mathematics and make this much more lucid. So this first manifestation of the eternal parent, this world soul, the first manifestation, is represented by the Rosicrucians by the symbol of a circle containing at its center a black dot or point. The circle, of course, represents the infinite unmanifest, and the black dot or point represents the focal point of the new manifestation, the germ within the cosmic egg, as the old occultists poetically expressed the idea. The Rosicrucians' concept of the world's soul, the first manifestation, corresponds to similar conceptions found in various forms in most of the ancient occult teachings of the several esoteric schools of philosophy. In some philosophies, it is known as the anima mundi, or life of the world, soul of the world, or world spirit. In others, it is known as the logos, or word. In others, as the demiurge. The spirit of the concept is this, that from the unconditioned essence of infinite unmanifestation, there arose an elemental and universal soul clothed in the garments of the most tenuous and elemental form of matter, which contained within itself the potency and latent possibility of all the future universes of the new cosmic circle or cosmic day. So basically this is talking about the first manifestation of what they call the eternal parent, or what could be called the One. And they are referring to this as the world's soul. They're also referencing the demiurge. Now, as we know in like Plato's Timaeus, there's the concept of the demiurge, the demiurgos, which means creator. And then in Gnosticism, we have the concept of the demiurgos as the creator as well. But in Gnosticism, the demiurge is looked at this very evil entity that basically was a manifestation of the divine light and wanted to create a world, wanted to be a creator itself, and sort of was copying the divine light, but did it in a very corrupt way, which gave birth to the corrupt world of matter. They aren't speaking about this. They're speaking about it more in a positive light. Again, I believe it's in Plato's Timaeus, where the demiurge is a creator, but isn't looked at as an evil being. The Gnostics looked at the demiurgos as an evil being. Once again, if this sounds strange, odd, hard to grasp, don't worry. I'm going to go over it after we get through a bit of it and show how we can make this all make sense without going into very, very strange territory. So you can see that this is the symbol that they use for symbol of the newborn world soul, the germ within the egg. And here they used the circle with the point inside. And already you can see that they are intuitively heading in the right direction, because, of course, these are the symbols that we use for a monad. And let me just bring that back up on screen so that I can have it available. One moment. Videos. Okay, so this is our symbol for the eternal mind, a monad. You can see, you know, they are intuitively going in the right direction here. And, you know, for those who might be new, why is it that we as Hyperions use this symbol as the symbol of a mind, a monad? Well, that's because we know that all of reality is based on the source formula, Euler's formula, which is a circle. You can see in the corner here, the circle and the point moving around an eternal motion around the circle, which generates waveforms, sine waves and cosine waves, and these are the waves of mind. So a circle in eternal motion generates mind, which is why it is a very good symbol to represent you as a mind, because it's inherent. It contains the idea of waveforms, which is mind, which is thought. So the Rosicrucians here have a very similar symbol, so you can see that they're intuitively, they're in the right ballpark. But this is the symbol that they use to represent the newborn world's soul, the germ within the egg. And again, that might sound kind of weird. What are they talking about? We're going to explain. We're going to explain that in just a moment. Colleen Sunex, Brenda Chartrand, and She-Wolf, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Colleen says, thank you for this brilliant knowledge. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. She-Wolf says, would you show us the logo of the Rose Cross? I don't have one. Let me see if I can just Google one real quick. Yeah, I mean, let me see if I can find one very quickly. Here's one. Let's see if I can get this on screen for you guys. Let's see if I can get this on screen for you guys. So, if you guys can see, there's a kind of a lot because I had to Google this, but look at, if you can see my mouse pointer, look at the one in the corner here. You can see the rose. Okay, you can see the rose with the cross just in the center. Okay, so we're going to see that the rose represents a circle and unity, and the cross represents division. And so once again, we can see where they are intuitively headed in the right direction, because you can plainly see our symbol. Ignore the blue part for a moment, but you can see the circle and the cross. The circle represents unity. The cross represents division, a division of unity and multiplicity. So that is one of the secret symbols behind the rose cross. Rose represents circle, unity. Cross represents division. In terms of Rosicrucians, the circle and rose represents the feminine aspect, whereas the cross represents the masculine aspect. I don't like putting things in terms of gender. I think it's very confusing and can result in dangerous misconceptions to put things in terms of gender like that. If it's a metaphor, that's fine, but we'll explore that too. But just so you know, that is the Rosicrucian interpretation of the rose cross. So let me close that out and get this back up again. Where did my... Okay, here we go. I'm just jumping into the comments real quick. Can you guys not do the loading emoji? Because I saw the loading emoji and I thought my browser had an error and the comments weren't loading. So no, do not do that. Okay, excellent. So let's continue with our reading. I don't care if you do the loading emoji, that's fine. Anyway. Let me see. I'm trying to find the book again. Okay. So, we're looking at this symbol. I already showed you how certain things relate. Do you see, but once again, just go with this for a moment, then we're going to jump in and really dissect it. Okay. The spirit of the concept is this, that from the unconditioned essence of infinite unmanifestation, there arose an elemental and universal soul, clothed in the garments of the most tenuous elemental form of matter, which contained within itself the potency and latent possibility of all the future universes of the new cosmic circle, or cosmic day. This world soul is spoken of in the second aphorism as the germ within the cosmic egg, inasmuch as it is regarded as the tiny germ within the egg, which gradually increases in size and complexity and takes upon itself form and activity. The symbol of the cosmic egg, of which the world soul is the animating germ, is a very old one, and one widely spread in usage in the ancient world. As a prominent occultist has said, whence this universal symbol? The egg was incorporated as a sacred sign in the cosmology of every people on earth, and was revered both on an account of its form and its inner mystery. From the earliest mental conceptions of man, it was known as that which represented the most successfully the origin and secret of being. The gradual development of the imperceptible germ within the closed shell, the inward working without any apparent outward interference of force, which from a latent nothing produced an active something, needing naught save heat, and which, having gradually evolved into a concrete living creature, broke its shell, appearing to the outward senses of all a self-generated and self-created being, must have been a standing miracle from the beginning. Once again, just stay with me because I'm going to explain this. The secret teaching explains the reason for this reference by the symbolism of the prehistoric races. The first cause had no name in the beginnings. Later, it was pictured in the fancy of the thinkers as an ever-invisible bird that dropped an egg into chaos, which egg became the universe. Hence, Brahm was called Kalahansa, the swan of eternity, which laid at the beginning of each Mahanvantara a golden egg. It typifies the great circle, or O itself, a symbol of the universe and its spherical bodies. The first manifestation of the cosmos in the form of an egg was the most widely diffused belief of antiquity. It was a symbol adopted among the Greeks, the Syrians, Persians, and Egyptians. In the Egyptian ritual, Seb, the god of time and of the earth, is spoken of having laid an egg, or the universe. Ra is shown like Brahma, gestating in the egg of the universe. With the Greeks, the Orphic egg was part of the Dionysiac and other mysteries, during which the mundane egg was consecrated and its significance explained. The Christians, especially the Greek and Latin churches, have fully adopted this symbol and seen it in a commemoration of life eternal or salvation and resurrection. This is found in the and corroborated by the custom of Easter eggs. From the egg of the pagan Druids to the red Easter eggs of the Slav, a cycle has passed. And yet, whether in civilized Europe or among the abject savages of Central America, we find the same archaic, primitive thought if we only search for it and do not disfigure in the haughtiness of our financial, mental, and physical superiority the original idea of the symbol. And, you know, I don't know what they're quoting here exactly, but ignore some of the very ignorant things that they have said. But I'm not sure. They were quoting some quote here, and they didn't say what their source was, so I have no idea what they just quoted. But let me, so that was a lot, and I want to really break this down because I'm sure that's all very, very confusing. So let's try and break this down in terms of Hyperionism. So let's take a look at the cosmic egg. This is the Orphic egg. We can see this on screen. Very cool symbol. I like it a lot. It's a little, for some reason, the line drawing makes it look weird on the screen, but you get a very general idea of it here. So what we're talking about here, and I'm going to explain things now in terms of Hyperionism, so that as we read this, you can kind of get a better sense and have something to grasp or hang on to. So this all has to do with the birth of the universe, okay? What does this have to do with an egg? Let me first explain to you how we interpret it. Okay. So we have here, this is the source, okay? You are an eternal mind. That's what you are. Each one of these circles represents you as an eternal mind, every single mind in existence, okay? So what is the source? The source is the collection of all minds. It is the immaterial domain, it's a singularity, it is the domain of pure mind. It's the collection of all minds. So, before the Big Bang, we existed in a perfect state, where every single mind was in relation to each other in such perfection and harmony, it was though there was one mind. Okay? It was as though there was one mind. Everything was perfect. There wasn't even any matter, because there was no need for matter. It was a domain of perfect mind. So, that is the state that we were in prior to the Big Bang. It's important to understand, prior to the Big Bang, there was the source, perfect collection of all minds working together as if they were one, perfect unity, perfect mind, no space, no time, no matter, nothing like this. Okay? So, what happens, the cause of the Big Bang is when individuality is born. In other words, when you go from perfect harmony to disharmony, when you go from a state of symmetry, mathematical symmetry, to mathematical asymmetry. This is when the minds of the source, instead of behaving like one mind, individuality starts to take shape, okay, in some form or another. Individual, rather than it being perfect and cohesive, separateness starts to occur. And this separateness, this division of the one into many, is what is the cause of the Big Bang and the birth of the material physical universe. So how can we understand this metaphor? How can we understand the cosmic egg in the terms of Hyperionism? Well, we can understand this in Hyperionism, the serpent always represents reason or wisdom or waves, right? Because the serpent is very similar to waveforms. We have the, once again, I'll bring that on screen. We have the source formula, which describes waveforms. These are the waves of mind, and you can see how it's very serpentine. So we often use the symbol of the serpent to represent reason, mind, wisdom, thought, because, you know, imagine you were in an ancient civilization. How would you describe this sort of motion using what existed in the world? Well, the serpent would be the closest thing you could get to this sort of idea. So, understanding the cosmic egg through Hyperionism, we can understand the serpent as sort of representing the mind, right? And what is the egg? Well, we can represent the egg. We can represent the egg as sort of like the one. Okay? We can represent the egg as sort of like the one. Because what is the egg? Well, it's a unity. Think about it, an egg. An egg is a unity that has the potential for life within it, right? The egg itself is a unity, but within the egg is a potential for birth. So here we have the domain of mind, and then we can think of the perfect source and all the minds acting together in harmony as a unity. But what happens when the minds, when unity, what happens when unity is broken? When unity is broken, fracture, division starts to occur. So then you can understand the cosmic egg, right? Imagine cracks forming in the cosmic egg. Fracture is beginning to occur. Division is beginning to occur. Well, what happens when an egg starts to crack? Why is an egg starting to crack? Because there is life within it, and it's about to burst free, and it shatters the egg, it shatters the unity, and life is born. So what this is that when the one mind begins to divide and individuality begins to manifest, that is what causes, that is the cause of the Big Bang and the birth of the universe. So you can see how do you see how we have the perfect source, the domain of perfect unity, where the many are acting as a one, and it's unified, it's perfect mind, and then the unity begins to eventually divide, and individuality starts to occur, and this is, you can, thinking in symbolic terms, the sort of cracking of unity and the birth of the universe, the birth of the physicality, right? What happens when you have an egg and a creature, a physical body, when you apply it to the universe is a physicality, the physical body of the world mind. So cracks, unity shatters to give rise to the universe of space and time. So it's a very difficult thing to explain because there's a lot of different concepts going on at one time. But hopefully that has made some sense, and we can keep this in the back of our mind as we continue to explore what the Rosicrucians are saying, and we can refer to this to get a better grasp of what we're discussing here. Let me jump into the comments real quick and see if there are any questions or something, because I just threw a ton of information out there, and I realize that, and I want to see if there are any points that need to be clarified or anything like that. So also, Randall Roth, thank you for helping us wake up the world. A Hyperion anthem, possibly? Yes, that would be very cool. I'd love to see that at some point. Susan says, please hit the like button. Yes, indeed. So I'm taking a look at some of the concepts here. Questions here. Okay, so people are asking, Sandra Hanan, thank you for helping us wake up the world. You're very welcome. And Claire G, thank you for the $20 super chat. You're awesome. This is helping to clarify. Excellent. I'm glad you think so. I see some questions about Abraxas. Okay, let me explain to you what Abraxas is. And I want you to keep in mind, when we talk about concepts like Abraxas and things like this, we're using human words. So even though we are precise in a certain way, whenever we start using metaphors like this, we're going to have some loss of information. So keep in mind, the only way to be perfectly accurate is to speak in terms of mathematics. However, that's not, I can't do that right now. However, because, no one would watch the stream because it would be infinitely long. But we're using the term. Okay, so let me bring this up here. Remember that okay. So what is Abraxas? Abraxas is the universe becoming conscious of itself. Abraxas is the consciousness of the universe, and that is expressed through us. So here we have the one. And as you can imagine, and the one is made up of each and every one of these individual minds, right? And each one of these individual minds are at a different level of awakening and awareness. And as each one of these nodes begins to become not self-aware, but both self-aware and aware that they are a node of the universe, when they have the consciousness that they are the universe and a node of it, that is a node of Abraxas awakening. Does that make sense? So Abraxas is the one in a process of coming to self-consciousness. And as each and every one of these monads, nodes, becomes aware that it is a node of Abraxas, Abraxas becomes more and more conscious. So you can imagine, say, every time one of these monads achieves Abraxian consciousness, you can imagine it sort of lighting up or changing color. And, as as 5 light up, well, Abraxas is barely starting to come to self-consciousness, right? But as more and more and more and more and more and more start to awaken, Abraxas becomes more and more conscious, because that's what we are. That's what we are. Watch my video on the 3 Hyperion modes of understanding avatar, monadic, and absolute or Abraxian consciousness to really understand it. I just released that video on Saturday. Extremely fundamental to Hyperionism, so make sure you watch that. But you can see, as each and every one of us wakes up and becomes conscious of ourselves as Abraxas, Abraxas becomes more conscious. We are the avatars of Abraxas. And that's why our goal is to create an Abraxian world. As the Earth itself becomes and steps into Abraxian consciousness, we'll have an Abraxian world, a unified world. And that much more of the universal mind will have awakened. So you can understand Abraxas as the one awakening. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me take a look in the comments and see if there are. Yes, Douglas Noonan, I highly recommend watching that. Definitely take a look at the video I just released on Saturday. It's called 3 Things That You Must Know to Wake Up, the 3 Hyperion modes. Very important, very fundamental to Hyperionism. All right, let's continue. And remember, if you are on Facebook, come on over to YouTube and hit the like button, subscribe, all those things. Do all the things. Joseph Cristante, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Good question. Deathbat asks, does the division of mind always mean the creation of matter? Yes, but it depends how you define matter. It depends how you define matter. Because remember, when you go to sleep and dream, that dream world is technically a type of matter. So it depends how you define matter. A division will always result in a representation of some kind. The generation of a dream world of some kind. Why? Because division entails separation, and experiencing that separation will always create spatiality, right? Some kind of does that make sense? So whenever you have a mind divided, whenever there is any kind of separation, the experience of that separation will result in of course some kind of representation, but a representation is always going to be separate because there's always going to be separation. If you didn't have separation, well, there wouldn't be that experience because it would be part of you, right? It's like you can't look at your own face because it's a part of you unless you have a mirror, unless you have something to reflect. But as soon as you have that mirror, as soon as you have that reflection, there's separation, right? So as soon as you have something to reflect into, there's automatically separation. Something to reflect into will entail that separation. Yeah, I see all the hashtags for MMM. I love that. Hashtag MMM. For those of you who don't know, the Million Monad March, our march to 1 million subscribers. We just hit 100,000, what was it, last month? Something like that. So yes, now we're on our march to a million. Zelatov, thank you for helping us wake up the world, says, does it not behoove materialists at all that there is no universally accepted scientific definition of what matter is? Very, very perceptive of you, Zelatov, and that is absolutely correct. Since the advent of quantum mechanics, since the paradigm of quantum mechanics, yes, matter scientifically is completely undefined. completely and totally undefined. And that should be a huge red flag. But again, scientists aren't concerned, materialists aren't concerned with these fallacies within their paradigm. They are only concerned with their faith in empirical data and their materialist beliefs. So very, very perceptive of you. And of course, in Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, we can clearly define what matter is, and that is simply waveforms that exhibit phase. You can have waves that have no phase, and these are mind, and then you can have waves that do exhibit phase, and these are what gives rise to matter. So again, this is explained in my book, Ontological Mathematics, The Science of the Future, but basically you have waveforms that are orthogonal, and then you have interaxial waves. Orthogonal waves are waves of mind. Interaxial waves are still waves of mind, but they have projections that ultimately are material waves, or are used for the creation of matter, because their net result no longer equals zero. So when you have a net result, when you have a result that does no longer equal zero, that's when you start to get matter. Waves of mind are when you have a net result of zero across a full cycle. Anyway, that's fully explained in my book, Ontological Mathematics, The Science of the Future, and check out the Hyperion Source, a great channel, and they're currently creating a video series all about that book. Someone says how to make Hyperion local groups. That's something we absolutely want to look at, but unfortunately we can't do it right now simply due to the pandemic. But that is on the list of things to do when we are able to navigate this world crisis, and the world, you know, especially America, gets its head out of its ass and starts handling it better. Pixie, thank you for helping us wake up the world. So let's continue our reading here. Okay, so the concept of the world soul, let's see, in some form of, just keep in mind everything we just talked about the source and the one and division and the birth of the universe being because of that division, and how we can understand this through the symbolism of the cosmic egg interpreted under Hyperionism. So just kind of keep this in the back of your mind as the Rosicrucians explain it in their way, which I'm going to say is a little muddied, and I'll be making this more lucid as we go. The concept of the world soul, in some form of interpretation and under some of many names, may be said to be practically universal. Among many of the ancient schools of philosophy, it was taught that there was an anima mundi, or world soul, of which all the individual souls were apparently separated, though not actually separate units. The conviction that life was one is expressed nearly all of the best of ancient philosophies, and in fact, in subtly disguised forms, may be said to rest at the base of the best of modern philosophies. So, you know, again, as we can see, this absolutely relates to the one being a collection of many, but as we will see, where the Rosicrucians go very, very wrong is that they view these individual nodes as not actually existing. But they do. The individual nodes are what exist. And okay, so we'll see more what they have to say about it. But basically, here's a big difference between Hyperionism and Rosicrucianism. So what the Rosicrucianisms say is that the one is what is fundamental, and all the nodes are in an illusion of sorts. In Hyperionism, in ontological mathematics, it's the nodes that are eternal. And the nodes, through working together, give rise to a conscious 1. All right, does that sort of make sense? It's the nodes that are eternal, and the 1 depends on the nodes for its existence. So if you were to imagine, if you look at this circle, oh, I don't even have this on screen. Sorry. So sorry. The nodes are eternal. So here is the 1. Once again, because I didn't have this on screen. The Rosicrucians think that the 1 is what is true reality, and the nodes are sort of like an illusion. They don't actually exist. In Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, it's kind of the opposite. It's the individual nodes that are eternal, and the 1 depends on the nodes for its existence. Because look, if you have these individual nodes, if you were to remove them, the 1 would disappear. If you think of the 1 as sort of like a house, and the bricks as the individual nodes, or a body and the individual cells. So we want to keep this firmly in mind and know that this is our position, because this means that you are eternal. You are God. You are the universe, as each and every single one of us is a node, and altogether we are the ultimate reality. Oh, Liliana, that's a lovely name. Liliana Elizabeth, thank you for helping us wake up the world. I appreciate it. Big shout out to everyone with the super chats. That's how I'm able to do what I do. All right. In the philosophical concept of the logos, we find another and more advanced form of this same fundamental concept. The term logos first became prominent in the philosophy of Heraclitus of Ephesus, where it appears as the law of nature, objective in the world, giving order and regularity to the movement of things. The logos formed an important part of the Stoic system of philosophy, the active principle abiding in the world they called the logos, the term being likewise applied to the universal productive cause. An authority of the history of philosophy has said of the concept of the logos, the logos, being intermediate between God and the world, is diffused through the world of the senses. The logos does not exist from eternity like God, and yet its genesis is not like our own, and that of all other created beings. It is the first begotten of God, and is for us imperfect beings almost as a God. Through the agency of the logos, God created the world. Okay, so another thing to understand here, what is logos? Well, logos means word. In ontological mathematics and Hyperionism, what is logos? Logos is reason. Logos is mathematics. Logos is mathematical form. So, logos is, there is no, here they're trying to say that the logos is like an intermediary between God and the world. No. Okay, so look, what is logos in Hyperionism? Logos is reason, logos is mathematical form. So it's the code of reality, it's the code of existence. It is what allows existence to be possible at all, and it is the code. So you could say that it is the highest, most fundamental aspect of reality. It is what allows everything else to exist. Without mathematical form, without reason, nothing else would be possible. You would not be able to experience the colors of the rainbow without the mathematical form that allows the transmission of that information, of that data. Mathematical form is the noumenal scaffolding upon which all of your phenomenal experiences hang. So, logos, noumena, mathematical form, is the structure of existence upon which everything else depends. It's why existence is possible at all. So you could call mathematical form God. They're trying to relegate this to a lower position, but it's not a lower position. There is no entity, there is no being that can violate mathematical form. Right? No being can make 2 + 2 equal anything other than 4. Doesn't matter how powerful you are, you can never make 2 plus 2 equal anything other than 4. You cannot violate the rules of mathematics. Why is that? That's because reality is mathematical, and we are mathematical beings, and we are God. And we, as mathematical beings, as God, cannot violate our own essence. If we can't violate the laws of mathematics because we are mathematical. We can't violate our own essence. We can't go against what we are. So there is no being that lies outside of mathematical form that used mathematical form. Mathematical form is what we are on one way of looking at things, because we're also the experiential aspect as well. But from the structural code aspect, we are the mathematical form that gives rise to existence. So there is no entity or being that lies outside of that. Always, be very, very skeptical of someone who tells you there is someone or something outside of what you are, or something like this. There's no mystical being out there that is above the laws of mathematics, because the laws of mathematics is sufficient to explain itself. It's a violation of Occam's razor to posit the existence of a being beyond mathematics, because mathematics is all we need to create existence, and it would be 100% logically fallacious to even try to do that, because you'd be going against the laws of reason. Mathematics is reason expressed. You can't posit something outside of mathematics or outside of reason without, by definition, being irrational. And if you are, by definition, being irrational, then you have no place trying to make a rational sense of the universe. And we clearly can. We are capable of rationally explaining the universe by appealing to the mathematical structure of reality and seeing that it all balances to zero, which is equal to nothingness, which is how it is possible that it can exist in the first place, because nothingness is eternal, uncaused, uncreated. Therefore, the universe is eternal, uncaused, and uncreated. Well, reality and existence itself. The physical universe is created, so to speak, but transformed is a more accurate term. Anyway, I just went on a very long tangent there. I said the universe is eternal. That's incorrect. The physical universe is not eternal. It has a beginning and an end. But reality, existence is eternal. Within existence, there are eternal universal cycles. A universe will begin and end, 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 begin and end. So the string of universes is eternal, but each universe itself, each iteration of space and time, has a beginning and it has an end. In the philosophical concept of the demiurge, we find another form of the same fundamental concept. The demiurge was the name given by the Platonian philosophers to an exalted and mysterious agent by whom God was supposed to have created the universe. He was akin to the nature god of the pantheists and to the living nature of the other schools of philosophy. The demiurge was the life of the world, or universal life, of which all the innumerable lives of finite creatures are but sparks in the flame or drops of water in the ocean. And yet, in its true sense, the concept of the demiurge was not identified with that of God, but was rather a concept of the first great manifestation of God, by means of which he creates and sustains the world. The idea of a universal will, a primal manifestation of God, existing at the heart of nature and operating to build up and sustain the universe, is found in many modern philosophies. Cudsworth, the English philosopher, has sought to indicate this conception in his idea of plastic nature, of which he says, "It seems not so agreeable that nature, as a distinct thing from the deity, should be quite superseded or made to signify nothing. God himself doing all things immediately and miraculously, from whence it would follow also that they are all done either forcibly and violently, or else artificially only, and none of them by any inward principle of their own. This opinion is further confuted by that slow and gradual process that in the generation of things which would seem to be but a vain and idle pomp or a trifling formality, if the moving power were omnipotent, as also by those errors and bungles which are committed where the matter is inept, which argue that the moving power be not irresistible, and that nature is such a thing as is not altogether incapable, as well as human art, of being sometimes frustrated and disappointed by the indisposition of matter. Whereas an omnipotent moving power, as it could dispatch its work in a moment, so would it always do it infallibly and irresistibly, no ineptitude and stubbornness of matter being ever able to hinder such a one or make him bungle or fumble in anything. So basically what this is saying is that, it's kind of dumb to say that there's some omnipotent God outside of us that created this world. Because if that were the case, it seems weird to have this really slow process of evolution. And also there seems to be a lot of problems in the world, right? There's a lot of things that don't work out too well. So it would seem, he's saying, that if you have an omnipotent God that exists outside of us, that why do we have this slow process of evolution? Why do we have these seeming bungles and errors and things that don't quite work out so well? Evolutionary dead ends and the sort of experimentation. It seems really weird to have this if there were an omnipotent God, an all-knowing God who could sort of just snap his fingers and make everything perfect exactly how it should be right away. Let me expand upon this. I just want to finish this quote. Therefore, since neither all things are produced fortuitously or by the unguided mechanism of matter, nor God himself may be reasonably thought to do all things immediately and miraculously, it may well be concluded that there is a plastic nature under him, which as an inferior and subordinate instrument doth drudgingly execute the part of his providence, which consists in the regular and orderly motion of matter, yet so as there is also besides this a higher providence to be acknowledged, which presiding over it doth often supply the defects of it, and sometimes overrules it, forasmuch as the plastic nature cannot act electively nor with discretion. So how can we understand this through Hyperionism and ontological mathematics and kind of clear this up a little bit? Well, basically, look, here's what we can say about it. Reality does not have some omnipotent, all-knowing God apart from you. Because, as was brought up here, then how come this omnipotent God doesn't just snap his fingers and everything is perfect? How come we have this slow process of evolution? How come we have these evolutionary dead ends? How come there seems to be all these bungles and experimentations going on, right? So we can set aside this idea that there's an infinite omnipotent God outside of us, because why would all that be the case? And then we're also, though, saying that reality also can't be just the random actions of dead inert matter. Because it can't, because even though there are bungles and sort of evolutionary dead ends, you can see that there is a process, right? There is a process happening, an experimentation going on. So you can't get this from random dead matter. So it can't be that there's an omnipotent God, and it can't be that this is a result of random dead matter either. But what is it? It's that reality is inherently mathematical. So since reality is inherently mathematical, it is in its very essence structure. So since reality is founded on a mathematical code, that's why you can have this structure that's trying to order itself. And this is the process of evolution. It's this, at first, very slow process of a mathematical structure trying to order itself. Consciousness is something that it develops to order itself better. Do you see how when we gain consciousness, we're able to make things more ordered in a faster way? We can make conscious decisions. We can start creating societies. So reality is this mathematical structure that's slowly ordering itself, and it's trying to order itself better and better and develop tools to order itself better and better. Consciousness is something that it develops to help order itself through us. That is what we are. We are a structure. We are the mathematical structure of reality, creating consciousness through us. So we, as that mathematical structure, can better structure and organize our world. So you see, through the development of consciousness, we're able to structure and order things at a much faster rate through self-consciousness. But here is why we must now develop Abraxian consciousness. Because as individual consciousness helped us order and structure things quickly, Abraxian consciousness will help us structure and order things exponentially faster. Even more, infinitely more faster than before, because Abraxian consciousness is higher. You see, it's a more evolved structure of consciousness that will help us order this mathematical reality even that much more effectively. And self-awareness is consciousness becoming aware of itself and actively engaging in the order and structure. Abraxian consciousness is realizing that we exist as nodes in the cosmic mind, and understanding that we are that mathematical structure in a single system working together. And that is why through an Abraxian consciousness, we will be able to order our world and order our universe infinitely fast. So do you see how reality is a mathematical structure that's ordering itself? It starts off very slow, but it starts to, within itself, generate tools that help it order itself quicker. One of those tools being self-consciousness. And now this is why in Hyperionism we are attaining Abraxian consciousness, and we want the rest of the world to attain Abraxian consciousness as well, because that's the next tool, the next evolutionary step that will allow us to construct an ordered and organized and a harmonious world. It's very, very interesting. Very important to understand that we are that mathematical structure, creating within itself higher and higher orders of tools to organize ourselves, organize our world, organize. So evolution isn't something that happens to us. We are evolution. And now we're becoming conscious of ourselves as evolution. So other schools of philosophy, notably that founded by Schopenhauer. Well, we talked about Schopenhauer a lot when we were live streaming our book by the book by Steve Madison on the musical theory of existence. So check that out if you're interested in Schopenhauer. Other schools of philosophy, notably that why do I keep skipping over my words? I need a glass of water. Other schools of philosophy, notably that founded by Schopenhauer, have postulated the presence of a universal spirit, whose chief attribute is desire, will, from whom the universe of creatures has proceeded. The universal spirit is held to be filled with a longing, craving, seeking, striving desire to express itself in phenomenal existence. In Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, this is the mathematical structure of existence seeking to order itself, seeking to find the most optimal harmonious expression of itself. And it generates the material world. It throws itself into this material world, and through the material world, it can begin to gain self-knowledge. Schopenhauer calls it the will to live. Veronica Roseberry, thank you for helping us wake up the world, says, I love how you explain God as a divided entity. It makes this evolutionary process much more bearable when there is not one person to blame. Yes, absolutely. This is us, guys. This is all us. God is what we are, divided. We are God that divided ourselves into individual nodes, And, you know, there's no savior. There's no second coming of Christ that's going to drop in, snap his fingers, and make everything better. This is our world. This is our creation. And that's why I have said this world has been hell far too long. It is time we reclaim our birthright. This world is ours. We created this universe. And so it's time that we understand that, come to consciousness, rip this world away from the rich elite rulers, and establish our kingdom of God on earth, our kingdom of heaven on earth. Fashion the world according to our image, in the image of God, the image of Deus, which is us. We are God, we are Deus. So Schopenhauer calls it the will to live. Okay, so it's this mathematical structure that's yearning for self-fulfillment, self-understanding. It's a mathematical process seeking symmetry. It is described as instinctive rather than intellectual, and as creating intellect with which to better serve its purpose of self-expression. Our mathematical selves, you know, the whole process of evolution is for the most part an unconscious process, right? And this is why then evolution develops self-consciousness as being a tool for self-reflecting and speeding up the evolutionary process, the ordering process. It is described as creating intellect with which to better serve its purposes of self-expression. Other philosophers have, but we know not only, it's not simply self-expression, but self-actualization. So there's a difference between self-expression and self-actualization, right? So what is self-expression? Self-expression is very static. It's, this is who I am, let me put it out there. Self-actualization is, I'm going to create myself and become better and actualize myself into the best version of myself that I can possibly be, and express that as well. Because you could imagine a very awful person that doesn't actualize themselves at all, but they might be very expressive. They can still express themselves. So it's not just about expression, but also actualization. We want to actualize and express at the same time. Actualization, because we want to evolve. Why expression? Because we want to show others who we are, because this is a feedback loop. So when we express ourselves, we are turning our souls inside out, so to speak. We are creating a visual representation or some kind of representation. We are making what is internal external. And through that externality of our internality, other minds can get an understanding of what it's like to be us and who we are and what we are. So you can see how there is that medium, my internality being expressed in externality, and then you as another mind seeing that externality and integrating that into your own internality and getting a better understanding of me, you, the world, all of us. So it's this feedback loop, right? I self-actualize, I express, you understand that expression, and that can aid in your understanding. And then so you internalize it, and then you express something else, and then maybe that even helps the first person. So do you see this feedback loop of actualizing, expressing, taking it in, aiding in actualization, then expressing it again? Reality is a giant feedback loop. Okay, other philosophers have proceeded along the main lines of the concept of Schopenhauer with various modifications. The same idea is expressed by some of the old Buddhist philosophers, the very term the will to live being used to express the essential nature of the universal spirit. But it must be noted in such philosophies the universal spirit is considered rather as the eternal parent than as the first manifestation. In the same way, a certain school of thinkers postulate the existence of a living nature, which expresses itself in innumerable living creatures and things, all things in the universe being held to possess life in some form and degree, as indeed the Rosicrucian creatures also hold. Real quick, I just want to make a real quick side note, just since Buddhism was mentioned, I want to mention that we are very, very, very different from Buddhism. Buddhism is about self-negation rather than self-actualization. They wish to extinguish the self, whereas we wish to actualize the self. So, really important to understand that Buddhism, again, is a school of thought that is a hindrance to enlightenment, because enlightenment, true stepping into your power is about self-actualization, not self-negation. But it must always be noted that in the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, the world soul is not regarded as the infinite reality, but merely as the first manifestation thereof, from which all subsequent manifestations proceed, and into which they are finally resolved. The world soul is not eternal, but on the contrary, appears and disappears according to the rhythm of the cosmic nights and days. The second aphorism states, the flame is rekindled. The dark light once more bursts into flame throughout the form of the world soul, and the new universe begins. It also states that time begins. This is seen to be true because change has begun, and change is the essence of time, and time the measure of change. Again, a thing exists. This because the world soul is truly a thing, which all the characteristics of thingness, it can be defined and described in positive terms. It can be thought of logically in terms of intellect, though perhaps not capable of being pictured in the imagination. Again, action begins. This is because from the very inception of the germ in the cosmic egg, there is manifestation of activity, motion, and change. The world soul is in constant and uninterrupted activity from the moment of its faintest dawn until the moment of its expiring quiver. Again, the pairs of opposites spring into being. All thingness is accompanied by the presence of the pairs of opposites. The contrasting set of qualities, it follows that from the first faint breath of the world spirit, differentiation begins and the polarity of qualities exhibit themselves. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Again, the world soul is born and awakens into manifestation. The world soul awakens into active manifestation from the very moment of its birth, finding within itself the impelling urge of the will to live and of expression. It proceeds at once along the lines of elementary instinct to prepare for manifestation of higher and more complex forms of life and action. Again, the first rays of the new cosmic day break over the horizon. With the coming of the world soul, the new cosmic day is indeed begun, and proceeds without interruption until the shades of the cosmic night once more overtake it in cyclic sequence. The Rosicrucian teaching is that the world soul is not a soul lacking a body, but that of the contrary, it is clothed in the garments of the most tenuous and ethereal substance, a substance as much finer and more ethereal than the ether of space of the material scientists, as the latter is much finer and more ethereal than the hardest steel or granite. We know that scientific materialists no longer believe in the theory of material ether. There is no such thing as a material ether. From this ethereal substance, the world soul weaves bodies for its manifestation, even the densest form of matter, and even the tenuous bodily forms of the highest form of life, far removed from our comparatively gross earth plane. So there is no material ether. However, there is an immaterial ether. What is the immaterial ether? It is mind. Mind and light, we've talked about this before. Mind and light are the same things. Mind and light is the same thing. Light is the immaterial ether. So from the clothing of light, we can create all reality, all matter. What does that mean? Well, mind is light, and broken light is matter. So from the metaphorically here, how they're saying it, from the immaterial ether of light, we can clothe in that, we can create matter. How do we understand that? Once again, remember that matter is broken mind, sluggish mind, asymmetrical mind, or asymmetrical, sluggish light. Light and mind are the same thing. Once again, I would like to give the comparison and metaphor of a hologram. If you imagine over here, over here we have the light source. Here we have the holographic plate. You shine the light source and the holographic plate, and over here is produced the hologram. So you take the light source, and when it goes through the holographic plate, through interference, it produces the hologram. So you can see that the hologram is light expressed in a different way. Matter is light expressed in a different way. Matter is broken light. Matter is asymmetrical light. So just like how you can see you have pure light over here that gives rise to the hologram, pure light, pure mind gives rise to the inner mathematical hologram, the collective dream world that we exist in here today. Matter is asymmetrical broken light. The Rosicrucians further hold that it is not correct to think of the world soul as having been created out of nothing by the eternal parent, and still less so think of it having been created from the substantial essence of the eternal parent by division, separation, or partition. On the contrary, it is held that the world soul exists as an idea of the eternal parent, just as in a daydream or a reverie or a full dream, we may picture a thing as in being, or other terms, even the world soul existing merely as a picture of the infinite imagination of the eternal parent, and the last is but a shadow of reality and not reality itself. The world soul at the dawn of the cosmic day may be taken... Sorry, I didn't have that up. The world soul at the dawn of the cosmic day may be said to be like a dreamer freshly awakened from a deep sleep and striving to regain consciousness of himself. It does not know what it is, nor does it know that it is but an idea of the eternal parent. If it could express its thought in words, it would say that it has always been, but had been asleep before that moment. It feels within itself the urge towards expression and manifestation along unconscious and instinctive lines, this urge being a part of its infinite nature, and character implanted into it by the content of the idea of the eternal parent which brought it into being. Like the newborn babe, it struggles for breath and begins to move its limbs, and as it struggles and moves, there comes to it a response from all of its nature, and its active life begins. And here we leave the world soul for the moment, struggling for breath and striving to move its limbs. Figuratively speaking, of course, its future is related in the succeeding aphorisms. Okay, I know I said that all really quick, but I want to get to the next part, which we're going to move on to, the universal androgyny. Now, I just want to say real quick, I hope you can see how understanding things through the lens of, like, what the Rosicrucians are saying are really, really interesting, but I hope you can see that they do get a lot of things wrong, and it's very muddied and cloudy. I hope you can see how Hyperionism and ontological mathematics is able to correct many of the errors that are made and able to explain things infinitely better and much more precisely. This is why understanding things through Hyperionism, through ontological mathematics, is so important, because there's a lot of things here that one could interpret and get very, very wrong. So here we have been able to understand this in a much more precise way. We're going to move to the next part, the universal androgyny, but I want to jump into the comments here and talk to you guys. And there are some good questions. So here's what's going on. I see some good questions. I'm going to answer them. I have to take a piss though, so I'm going to go take a piss and get some water. Then I'm going to come back and answer your questions. So now is a good time to come into the chat, ask questions in the chat, and if you are on Facebook, let's see, there are a ton of you on Facebook, so I highly recommend coming over to YouTube. That's where I interact in the comments, and I'm going to do so right when I return. So I'm going to go do that. In the meantime, like this video, share this video, ask questions. I'll be back. All right, all right. I have returned. I see some good questions. Let's put this back here, and I will. Okay, so ask your questions away, but I want to get to some super chat questions that I see here. So real quick, thank you to Douglas Noonan and Taylor Maid for helping us wake up the world. Douglas says, you recently denounced Buddhism, which I find interesting. What is your opinion on meditation? So here's the idea. In Hyperionism, we have void states. And what is the difference? Well, look, the problem that can come with meditation is that a lot of people will say that meditation is the answer to everything. And this can be very, very dangerous. Why? Because meditation it's not hard. Compared with self-actualization, it's not hard. Self-actualization is very, very difficult. So if you tell someone, you know, if there's a certain teaching that says meditation is sort of the key, people are going to become obsessed with meditation and then think that sitting there all day and not thinking is going to somehow change themselves and change the world. Now, void states, what void states are in Hyperionism, void states are a process of eliminating the chatter of the mind and going into that dark contemplative state that's similar to meditation. However, the goal is very different from meditation. The goal is to explore the unconscious mind, or to set a specific goal or intention having to do with self-actualization or world actualization. So the goal of void states is about bypassing the conscious mind to immerse oneself in the unconscious realm for the purpose of making the unconscious conscious, or to set an intention, so for the goal of self-actualization and or world transformation. So it is a teleological striving. It has a purpose with the goal of self-actualization. And there's nothing wrong with doing these sorts of things if you want to do it to calm down at the end of the day, or to help with anxiety, or help with stress. That's fine. That's great. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The problem is when people say that this is the answer to life, and the answer to existence is just to sit there under a tree all day with your eyes shut. No. When you become obsessed with that, it's a very detrimental thing to your self-actualization. You know, I see there are some people who will meditate for 6-7 hours a day. 6-7 hours a day. That's crazy. So let's say you do a void state for 30 minutes, or even an hour if you want, whatever. But what if you use that all the rest of that time, instead of just sitting there and doing nothing, but working on yourself, transforming yourself, learning skills, educating yourself, understanding philosophy, working on self-actualization, working on changing the world, working on activism, working on creating a better society, understanding Abraxas consciousness, studying these esoteric systems, studying philosophy, studying mathematics, understanding how we all connect, looking into ways of altered consciousness, looking into psychedelics, things like this. What I'm just saying is it becomes a problem when someone thinks that meditation is the answer to everything, because then they become obsessed with it, and then it's a hindrance to self-actualization. Most people who become obsessed with meditation, they use it as a form of self-negation. They think that they need to negate the self, negate desire, negate will in order to reach a nirvana or something like this. And really what it's all about is self-actualization. So hopefully that makes sense. It's the difference is a little difficult to articulate, but it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. It's about using void states to explore the unconscious for the purpose. You see, there's a goal and a purpose, and the goal and the purpose is making the unconscious conscious through self-actualization, or setting a goal and intention for world transformation, or a personal goal, or things like that. So So do you see how it's about stepping into your power, becoming a more expressed, more actualized individual? Hopefully that makes sense. Rowan James says, do not negate the self, actualize. 100% correct. Simply Emily 82, here, let me put these up. Simply Emily 82 says, can you do a void state video? Yes, I have done a video on void states. Go to my channel, search void states, and you'll find that video. And here, I'm just messing with the light a little bit. And you'll be able to see a full explanation of what void states are, etc. Okay, who else? Elena Anderson, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Says, I'm really enjoying this book. Thank you for all you do. You're very welcome. And thank you. And TaylorMade super chatted and asked, how does Hyperionism explain Trumpeteers? Will they awake? This puzzles me with a capital P. Okay, good question. So you're asking about Trump supporters, right? How do Trump supporters play into it? Here's the issue. So reality is a collective. Are Trump supporters part of the collective? Yes, they are. However, they lack the ability to use logic and reason to understand what we need to do to create a new world. So essentially, we need to create a world. Why do they exist? Essentially, look, they need to go through a process of self-actualization. Okay, everyone is on a different scale of evolution, and if an individual is not using logic and reason, they will come to very, very, very bad ideas. They'll simply be swayed by rhetoric or whoever can shout the loudest, like Trump. Trump is just a noisy guy that shouts the loudest, and of course then sheep will follow him. So are Trump supporters and whatnot part of the universal mind? Of course they are. We all are. But let me use another example, all right? So let's take a look at like the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is part of the universal mind as well. We have animals that hunt and kill and things like that. And of course, you know, they are hurting other creatures and things like that, but they're just sort of following their programming. They're following their instincts and whatnot. So we can understand that we need to create a world where people are educated in such a way that they know how to think rationally and they know how to understand existence, and people wouldn't develop those hateful conclusions just because the loudest guy in the room will be telling them to do it. See, Trump supporters have not integrated their power self. Their power self is almost like a God image. And because Trump supporters haven't integrated their power self, they do power self projection. And they project their power self onto Trump. And it means that they begin to worship Trump as though he were a god. And so instead of stepping into their own power, they project their power self onto Trump, act like Trump is a god, and do everything that he would say, regardless of any kind of logic or rationale or anything like that. All right. Let me see. Let me know. Okay, we're going to move on to the next section, but I want to spend just a few more minutes in the chat. So now is a great time to ask your questions. Zilotov, thank you for helping us wake up the world, and says, I would like your take on the work of Nassim Haramein, if you don't mind. Okay, so I don't like discussing other people unless I know their work inside and out. So, in my cursory look at Nassim's work, he gets some things right, but a lot of things wrong. I haven't looked into his work enough to be able to make a concrete statement about his work 100%. So if there's enough interest, perhaps I will actually sit down and, take a thorough look at his work and point out exactly what are some things that are interesting and what are some things that he gets wrong. So, again, from the little bit that I have seen, some things are right, but some things are very, very wrong as well. So, perhaps I'll do a more thorough examination at some point, but those are my initial impressions. Jesse Blue says, our responsibility as monads breaking into Abraxian consciousness to stop the hell cycle on Earth, very right, is like my personal responsibility to stop the abuse cycle in my family. Oh, interesting. I mean, yeah, as above, so below. I mean, you can see the the world is an abusive family. So yeah, you kind of have the microcosm reflected in the macrocosm there. The world is like an The world is like an abusive family, or it's like a toxic relationship. It's a lot of parallels there. That's a weird question. No, Nosy Parker says, why is everyone transsexual on TV? I don't think that everyone on TV is transsexual, Nosy Parker. I think most people on TV are not transsexual. That's a weird thing to say. FYI, Hyperionism is 100% supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. I myself identify as non-binary. All right, so let's continue. Oh, Scullywag, my friend. So good to see you. Thank you so much for your $50 super chat. Says, hope everything is okay with you, my friend. Doing well. I am doing fantastic. And it's so nice to see you. Yay. Hooray, Scullywag. Let's do a color change for you. You'll get, we get our green color for Scullywag. Hey, Scullywag. Daniel Ahmad also identifies as non-binary. I think that's awesome. It was just non-binary day a few days ago, and I'm so upset that I didn't realize it until the day of. I would have done a video about it because I think that's an awesome thing to spread awareness about. Unfortunately, maybe next year. I'll try and remember to do a video for non-binary day next year. Hopefully I remember. Yes, I see already. You guys are ahead of me. You're doing the infinity skulls for Scullywag. That's awesome. Yes, do that. I'm going to give Scullywag some infinity skulls as well. Do that. Put them all in there. Lilith Ishtar from France. Hey, Lilith, I've seen you here quite a lot. Hello, hello. May Lewis says, why do people worry about other sexuality so much, LOL? I don't know. It's a weird thing, right? Everyone is obsessed. Who gives a fuck? Who likes who? What's between someone's legs? It's really creepy and weird. Like, just shut the fuck up and let people do what they want to do and be who they want to be, as long as they're not, infringing on any consensual, as long as everything's consensual and they're not hurting anyone, just like, fuck off, like, let people love who they want to love, and who gives a shit what's between their legs? Like, my God, humans are fucking weird. Humans are so weird. Like, it should be obvious. All these things that we promote in Hyperionism, from the Abraxian perspective, are obvious. Should be common sense. But humans, being so fractured and lacking that Abraxian consciousness, God, they're just weird. It's like, I can't pick, there's no better word for it than just plain weird. They're strange creatures. Darian Contreras, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. Thank you, Darian. Oh, here's an interesting question. So Dion says, do you think DMT shows us that our spirit is inside a cube with our mirror self, and we need to someday escape from this demiurge cube into the pleroma spiritual universe? I mean, that's a really interesting way to think about it. And what you say parallels my DMT experience. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on my channel. I explain my experience with DMT. I mean, that's an interesting way to experiment it. We are not literally trapped within a cube. A cube is a symbolic and metaphorical way to represent a prison. So are we literally trapped in a cube? No. But symbolically, yes. If you symbolically understand the cube as being a prison, well, this realm of matter you can think of as sort of being like a prison, because our divine selves are trapped in a certain way within the material world. It's not literally a cube, but metaphorically speaking, you could think of it a cube as if you use a cube as being metaphorical for a prison, like being stuck in a box. You can see it's very cell-like. And yes, we can eventually, through self-actualization and actualization of the world, return to the pleroma, the realm of the divine light, which is the source, the immaterial singularity of pure mind, where we have no more need for matter because unity is achieved. There is no more separation. We have united with all our opposites, and yes, that would be like the cosmic uniting, uniting cosmically with our mirror self in a way to speak. Yeah, so what you said, metaphorically speaking, is an interesting way to think about it. And you're asking, is that what DMT shows us? It may show some people that. DMT shows people very, very different things because it depends on the state of consciousness the person who's doing DMT is at. Some people will do DMT and have a revelatory experience about the immaterial nature of reality and uniting with the source and things like that. Another person might have the experience and just be like, oh dude, DMT's fucking trippy, man, and have no idea what they're experiencing. And others might, so DMT is it's not a cure-all. I did a video on what would happen if Trump did DMT, where I explain psychedelics aren't the answer to everything because some people just aren't at the level of consciousness where they can interpret and integrate the content that DMT can provide. Someone says, I wish he could release physical books. I do have physical books. Are you talking about me? My books are physical. They're on iamhyperion.com. But with audio, yeah, I'd love to do audio at some time. I just don't have the time right now. Maybe sometime in the future, but probably not for a while because we're doing so many, we're growing so fast. We're growing so fast and I'm doing so many videos that, Lilith, please don't spam the chat. I'm doing so many videos that it's hard to find time. So at some point I'd love to do audiobook reading. When, I have no idea. Probably not for a very, very long time because we are growing so fast and I need to create videos to address all the questions and stuff that's happening. Dion says, thank you so much, Morgue. That was awesome. I saw your DMT video earlier today. Check it out. I have a whole playlist on DMT. Seeker144 says, so do you think God is just a form of energy and not an intellectual being? Well, I've said this before. I mean, everyone should probably know this already, but I'll say it again real quick. What is God? We are God. We are the universe. Is God a conscious entity? God is energy that can become conscious through us. When we become conscious, God becomes conscious. That's what Abraxian consciousness is. Abraxian consciousness is the consciousness of God as us. When we become conscious that we are God and the universe and connected, God becomes conscious because we are God. It really is that simple. It really is that simple, but it takes a very high level of consciousness to really understand what I just said. What I just said, I can say it in a sentence, but for someone to truly be able to understand it, grasp it intuitively and rationally at the same time, that's another thing altogether. And if you're beginning to understand, feel very proud of yourself because you are on the cutting edge of a new consciousness. The vast majority of humanity can't understand these things at all, at all. So we are literally the new evolutionary step, the next level of consciousness actualizing itself. We are the avatars of Abraxas. We are the vanguards of a new consciousness. Only one Master Shake says, do you ever meet entities on your DMT ayahuasca journeys? If so, do you consider them separate from yourself, or do you consider them different aspects of yourself? Okay, so again, I have explained this before, and it's hard to say succinctly because it's a very in-depth question. This is a video that I will do. I will do a whole video on this. But basically, when you have a DMT trip, you are experiencing archetypes. Archetypes are both part of you, and they are entities at the same time. Why is this? I've used this example of being that if there is a particular pattern, say a person exhibits a particular pattern and you copy that pattern, you have a copy of that pattern within your own mind, but that person still exists as an actual entity. So at that point, there is this person that exists, but if many people copy that pattern and has it within their mind or consciousness, they can then tune into it. They have a copy of it within your mind. So when you have a DMT trip and you are experiencing archetypal patterns within your mind, that's what you're experiencing. Archetypal structures in your unconscious. However, archetypes are both within your mind and entities at the same time. So it's you're going to find that so many times in Hyperionism, it's not this one or the other answer. Like, is reality one or is it many? It's both one and many at the same time. Is reality about self or other? It's about self and other. Are you experiencing your own unconscious, or are you experiencing independent entities? You're experiencing your own unconscious, but we exist in a feedback loop, so independent entities have provided the patterns that exist within your unconscious as structures. So it's kind of both. I'll do a whole video on this. So, and thank you for helping us wake up the world, by the way, Master Shake. I think I said that, but I'm saying it again just in case. Let us see. What, Nosy Parker? What is your obsession with transsexuals? It's weird. I don't understand. Why are you in here asking about transsexuals on television? I just don't understand. What? Anyway, just so everyone is clear, I and Hyperionism is 100% supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, and we don't. There's no weird secret transsexual agenda to take over the world or anything, okay? That's weird. Okay, but hey, guess what? This is a perfect segue. Interestingly enough, this is a perfect segue to our next section, which is about the universal androgyny. So let's talk about androgyny. Which should be interesting. Okay, so Part 4, the universal androgyny. In the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, we find the following third aphorism. The one became the two. The neuter became bisexual, male and female. The two in one evolved from the neuter, and the work of generation began. So interestingly, that was a good segue into this. However, I'm going to explain. The Rosicrucians talk a lot about gender. We're going to see what they think about it, and then I'm going to explain why I don't think it's a great idea always to talk in gender, because it can lead to issues. In this third aphorism of creation, the Rosicrucian is directed to apply his attention to the conception of the world soul, the first manifestation of the eternal parent, as a bisexual universal being. This bisexual universal being, combining within itself the elements and principles of both masculinity and femininity, is known in the Rosicrucian teachings as the universal hermaphrodite and the universal androgyny. The term hermaphrodite is defined as an individual which has the attributes of both male and female. The term is derived by joining together the two names Hermes and Aphrodite. The term came into ancient use through the legend of Hermaphroditus, son of Hermes and Aphrodite, who, while bathing, became joined in one body with the nymph Salamacus. The term androgyny is defined as an individual possessing the attributes of both male and female, hermaphrodite. The term is derived from the combination of two Greek words, andros, meaning a man, and gyne, meaning a woman. The conception of the bisexuality in the universal manifestation or universal being is one met with on all sides in the ancient esoteric and occult philosophies in all lands, in ancient Greece, in ancient India, and ancient Atlantis, Persia, and Chaldea. The doctrine formed an important part of the inner teachings. In its highest forms, this teachings lay at the very heart of the ancient mysteries and resulted in the highest and noblest conception of the dignity and worthiness of sex, but prostituted by the vulgar popular mind, encouraged by a debased priesthood. The same teachings were inverted and made to serve the basis of various degenerate phases of phallic worship, the traces of which are found on every page of the ancient philosophical or religious history. The Rosicrucians have never countenanced even the slight descent into phallicism, but on contrary, have kept alive the flame of the true teachings and have used in its particular symbol as the distinctive symbolic name and emblem of the order. All right. So, in order to understand the symbology of the universal androgyny, it is necessary to first become familiar with the two ancient symbols of sex. In all the ancient philosophies of religion, we find the cross is the symbol of the male, and the circle, the symbol of the female. In representing the bisexual, the hermaphrodite, the androgyny, the two symbols, the cross and the circle, are combined in one of several ways. The original was that of placing the cross within the circumference of the circle. Okay, so here we have, this is their symbol of the universal androgyny, saying that the circle is feminine and the cross is masculine. I have an issue with saying that the world runs on masculine and feminine principles. I think it's very, very dangerous to say this because it is a metaphor. If you want to use it as a metaphor, that's perfectly fine, okay? As long as you realize that it is only a metaphor. Okay? As long as you realize that it is only a metaphor. Because really, when we're talking about the fundamental nature of existence, we're talking about a mathematical process. So there's no male and female. There are only opposites, like positive and negative. Okay? So it is much better to, rather than talk about male and female, to talk about, say, unity and division. Because male and female is just symbolically talking about unity and division. So we can easily talk about, so again, you can see where they're moving in the right direction because they use the symbol of the circle and the cross. We saw before, that's the symbol of the rose and the cross, and Rosicrucian, rose cross. But once again, you can see that we have, look, this is the source formula, right? The source formula, we have the circle and the cross. Yes, the circle is a unity, okay? And the cross is the plane, the axes that help us represent all the individual points on that cross and on that circle, okay? It is the dividing of the circle. And as you can see, what does this, circle and cross produce? Well, this circle and cross produces a waveform. It produces two waveforms, actually, a sine and a cosine wave. Here we're only looking at one, but you can see that it is through the circle and cross that we get, through this process of both a unity and a division at the same time, we get life and mind. And let's take a look at the source formula again more fully, as we've seen many, many times. So you can see, once again, these are the two waves that the source formula generates. So we have the circle that generates waves. Now, are opposites entailed in reality? Yes, we have unity and division. We have a one and many. And we have positive and negative. Let's take a look here. Here is positive one. Here is negative one. And so we have the concept of positive and negative. Now, do we want to call unity female and division male? Do we want to call positive male and negative female? I think that that is very dangerous territory to do that. Now, if you want to do it symbolically, like, oh, there's so much division in this world, we need more feminine energy. If you're like using it in a metaphorical way to try and get the idea across to people, like, I guess that's okay. I'm not a huge fan of doing that because I think it results in problems. You have to understand that reality is an interplay of opposites, of unity and division, of positive and negative forces. I'm highly using male and female as a metaphor is fine, but if you say that it's the inherent structure of reality, guess what happens? You're going to get people who interpret this wrong. So you're going to get people who say, oh, well, if reality is just an interplay of male and female, well, then it must be wrong for there to be anything else other than male and female. It must be wrong, non-binary must be wrong. Transsexuality must be wrong. Homosexuality must be wrong. If male and female is like this interplaying force, well, then we can't have male and male together. We can't have female and female together because isn't that going against the fundamental nature of reality? You see how that's really dangerous thinking? You see, and do you see how some people would interpret it that way and falsely use it to try and promote this old world conservative worldview, which is very incorrect. So this is why I understand why the Rosicrucians use this metaphor, but please just know that it is a metaphor because it's really an interplay of opposing forces. Even when I explained my DMT trip, right? I explained my DMT trip, and I said, when I said the entity that was me and divided from myself, in my D&T trip, I said it was a she, but it wasn't a she. Like those were, it was so beyond the concept of male and female. It was just an other. But using human language was the only way that I could really describe it in a very inaccurate way, right? So hopefully that all makes sense, and you can see why I'm very hesitant and think it's dangerous to describe things in the way that the Rosicrucians do, though I see the metaphorical power in it. I understand that it's metaphorically powerful, but it can come with danger. Just like, you know, if you try and describe the world as like, well, in the beginning there was God, and then the devil came, and chaos ensued. If you use that to try and describe, you know, asymmetry entering the world in a metaphor of like God and the devil, that's fine, but only if you understand it's metaphorical. Because if you don't understand it's metaphorical and you take it as literal, then you're going to get people who want to worship God and be like, oh no, there's this devil guy with horns that is like, you know, trying to send me to hell, and it gets crazy and it gets just disastrous. Okay, so interesting. But I also want to show. I mean, I could say so much more on this, but I don't want to bore you guys because you're probably like, okay, I get it. Anyway, but I think this is very, very cool. You know, this is the circle and the cross is one way of representing it, but also is the Ankh. And I think the Ankh is a very, very cool symbol, because in the Ankh, you can also see the circle and the cross, just expressed in a different way. Unity and division. Once again, you have the opposing forces, unity and division, represented within the Ankh. If you want to metaphorically look at the Ankh as being the combination of feminine would be the circle and masculine would be the cross. Right? Again, why is it the cross? It's also the sword, right? The sword is also, because it's like phallic. It's like a penis, right? And it's also, a sword divides. So, again, it's a very human way of looking at things. But I think the Ankh is a very cool symbol. I like it a lot. And you can see how it does. It entails within it the two opposing forces of unity and division, the circle and the cross. I think the Ankh is a very cool way to represent that. And I like it's one of my favorite symbols, at least with regard to esoteric ancient symbols. Now, why can't I get out of this? Okay. So the original way was that of placing the cross within the circumference of the circle, but also usage preferred the various forms of the so-called phallic cross, which consists of the circle or oval sustaining the cross, which depends downward for it. Sometimes the cross is represented as the letter T and the circle as the letter O. And then we also have the well-known esoteric symbol of the swastika. Now, I want you to remember, please remember that, you know, Nazis are bad. Nazis are horrible. We're extremely anti-Nazi in every shape, way, and form. It's disgusting. But the swastika is an ancient symbol that the Nazis adopted. Now, of course, this symbol has been totally, it's an evil symbol nowadays. But remember, in the past, before Nazism and all that, the swastika was an esoteric symbol consisting of a modified cross conceived as a whirling wheel, something like the familiar spinning pinwheel of the boys' fireworks. So essentially, that basically, if you were take this symbol and spin it really fast, it would produce the symbol of a circle and a cross. Of a circle, which seen in rapid motion presents the appearance of a circle enclosing a cross. And once again, do not misunderstand me. The swastika is now not a symbol that we would ever use, because it's been so, Nazism destroyed it. Now where this symbol originated, should those people who where originated in their culture, should they be able to use it? I mean, I think so. Like, as long as they are, I think it's unfortunate that, you know, where that symbol originated, that now those people who it's part of their culture, you know, have a hard time using it. I think they should be able to. But it's so, you know, that's a whole nother topic for another time, and that's completely besides the point. But in a nutshell, Nazis are bad, okay? Fuck them. But that was the ancient meaning of that particular symbol. The symbol of the circle enclosing the cross is one particular sacred to the Rosicrucians, since to them it represents the universal activity and universal creation, symbolizing the great mystery of occult generation on all planes of life. Okay, once again, so to take away, the symbol of the circle enclosing the cross is sacred to the Rosicrucians. It represents universal activity, universal creation, symbolizing the great mystery of the occult generation on all planes of life. So again, how do we understand this? Well, we can clearly understand this through the source formula. Clearly it's understood through the source formula. And guys, I want to say my computer's being funky right now. I don't know why. If my computer restarts, if this like suddenly pauses, don't worry, just wait 5 minutes and I'll be right back. I don't know why my computer doesn't like me playing GIFs right now. But yeah, if this freezes or goes black, just bear with me and I'll be right back. Okay, so but as you can see, as we have seen in the source formula, right? When the circle goes, you know, this eternal motion, right? The eternal motion of the circle and the cross generates waves. And you can see the Rosicrucians were intuitively getting there when they say the symbol of the circle enclosing the cross represents universal activity and universal creation, symbolizing the great mystery of the occult generation on all planes of life. So yes, the circle going around the source formula, the motion of the point going around the source formula generates life through the generation of waves. In the fanciful symbology of the ancient Rosicrucian brotherhoods, the circle was transformed into the rose, and the cross sometimes transformed into the sword. I mentioned that before, with its cross-like handle. The sign then of the cross or sword combined with the circle or rose symbolized the mystic union of the rose and the cross, from whence arose the name of the order, that is Rosicrucian, meaning rose cross. The third aphorism states, the one became two, the neuter became bisexual, male and female, the two in one evolved from the neuter, and the work of creation began. So again, this is where the one mind starts to divide itself, right? So the one becomes two, and blah 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 blah. The one starts to fracture into myriad individual viewpoints, and yeah, you could say male and female, but it's really, what is it? It's a subject and object. It's a this and a that. It's just in other. It's just in other. It's not male for you. It's not like one. It's not like one has a penis, one has a vagina. It's not like one is a. No. It's just a this and a that. A self and other, and from the other viewpoint, it's the self and other. It's just two viewpoints. Okay. So this is the one starting to break down into myriad forms. So in this aphorism, there is given the hint at the very important teaching of the Rosicrucians considering the universal sex principles in nature, the presence and activity of the sexual pairs of opposites, male and female, which constitute the secret of creation. According to the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, there are present in all creation the activity of a male principle and a female principle, both universal in nature, character, and extent, both opposing aspects of the world's soul, which act and react upon one another, and thus produce all creativity, activity, and the cosmic becoming, or universal activity and change. And the teaching also, I just want to stop and say real quick, because they say the feminine and male principle is throughout all of nature, but again, guys, it's just an opposing force. Again, if you look at the source formula, where we have the concept of unity and division, that interplay of sort of opposing ideas is what gives rise to waves and points flowing along those waves and all life. So it's the interplay of sort of opposing ideas. In Hegelian terms, it's the dialectic at work. Hegel realized that this world is run by a clash of opposites. Everything that happens is because of a clash of opposites. So you have all these clashes of opposites, and they manifest in many, many, many different ways. It's not this always about this male and female sort of thing. So, okay, you have this, and the teachings also are that these two sex principles operate and manifest upon every plane of life. Okay, well, again, they're saying sex principles. Let me explain what they mean by sex principles. Again, to me, that this is a very muddied metaphor that can result in confusion. But what happens when you have, what is sex? Okay, look, if you have a male and a female, and you say that they're opposites, and they combine, have sex, this can result in a child, which is a third thing. So metaphorically, we can understand it this way. But look, what is this really? This is the dialectic of thesis, antithesis, and when the thesis and antithesis are clash and combine, you have a synthesis. A synthesis is born. So, it's really, to say male and female, the sex aspects produce change in birth, is a metaphor that kind of works, but I don't really like. I like, it's the dialectic is what it is. You have antithesis, thesis, antithesis, the clashing, and through that the birth of a synthesis. Hey, that's that's one of the main meanings of the Hyperion triskill. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And, you know, we can understand this in many, many different ways. And so that's what I want to point out there. So that's what they mean by these two sex principles operate and manifest upon every plane of life. So yes, sex principle, the dialectic, but this yearning for this, like these opposites that they're like in tension and opposition. They're opposed, but yet they ultimately come together. They synthesize and they produce something new, and then from that synthesis, a new antithesis and thesis is generated, and there's this constant process of coming together and forming something new, and then from that something new opposites are generated, and then there's a new coming together and a new idea. So these principles manifest upon every plane of life, from submineral onto the mineral, onto the plant, onto the animal, onto the human, or to the superhuman, onto the angelic or godlike. And so through this clash of the dialectic, what is this? Well, it's evolution, because things get better and better, and it's our evolution, and it manifests in all planes of life and is what will allow us to transform into God. Because every clash of opposites creates a higher synthesis. And every synthesis results in a higher idea. The highest idea is Abraxas, completely and totally actualized. Self-consciousness and absolute consciousness, fully, completely, and totally actualized. This is the supreme synthesis, the omega point. So yes, can we understand this metaphorically through sex? Sure. Just don't take it literally. Don't think it means that, don't take it literally. The above statement of the universality of sex may seem somewhat surprising to the person who has not acquainted himself or herself with the ancient wisdom of the esoteric schools, or who is not familiar with the daring conceptions of advanced modern science, but to one who has mastered the ancient wisdom teachings and who has likewise become acquainted with the best of modern advanced scientific thought. There will seem to be nothing strange about these statements. The ancient teachings taught positively that there was present and active sex in all manifested creation, and modern science is beginning to teach that the evidence of the presence of sex in everything is conclusive. The ancient teachings, which were later embodied in the early Rosicrucians' teachings, held that in order that there might be becoming, change, or creation, there must be reaction following action, and the play of one force on another. And the best teaching of the ancients were that these two opposing forces in nature were masculine and feminine respectively, dual aspects of the universal being, and modern science is in fact coming to recognize and teach the same great truth. I just want to say this again. Do you see how, okay, look, reality is mathematical. We've seen the source formula that entails the circle and the axes. The circle is unity. The axes is what would be the cross. But do you see how then saying one is male and one is female is to apply a flawed human interpretation on top of it? It's to take something that's purely mathematical and apply a flawed human interpretation on top of it. So humans don't understand things very well. So to get across certain ideas, people interpret things. People have a hard time understanding mathematical information. They can understand sex pretty easily, so if you're trying to metaphorically explain something to someone, that's why it can be helpful. But remember, it's a flawed human interpretation. I mean, sex is a powerful thing, and is it embodied in all planes of life? Yes. This unity of this desire of wanting to come together can be interpreted as a sex principle. I mean, you could say that all of reality is about sex. If you're saying, metaphorically, that all of reality is about coming together. But again, you could say that all of reality is about love, too. Metaphorically speaking. Right? Metaphorically speaking, you could say all of reality is about love and sex. Because it's about desiring that intimacy and unity and coming together and unifying. But remember, we're applying human words and interpretation to it. Really, mathematically speaking, reality is a rational, evolving mathematical structure seeking higher and higher orders of symmetry. Okay? So that's really what it is. A mathematical structure composed of myriad minds seeking higher orders of mathematical symmetry. And in existence, sex, the physical act, is one way that we experience that. It's one one on the material plane. It's a modality of how that gets manifested. Okay, let's continue. The best teachings of modern science is that there is a stimulating or fertilizing activity in nature which acts upon a generative force, the latter reaching upon the former. And at the other end of the material scale, we find the teaching that the atom, once supposed to be the ultimate form of matter, is now discovered to be composed of a multitude of electrons, corpuscles, or ions, different names for the same thing, revolving around each other at a tremendous rate of motion. It was formerly supposed that the electrons simply revolved one around another, and that all were alike in character and nature. But the later discoveries show that the formation of the atom is due rather to the action of numerous circling positive or male electrons around a central negative or female electron. The positive or male electron seemingly exerting a peculiar effect upon the negative or female electron, which causes her to put forth certain energies which result in the generation of the atomic structure. Okay, so again, so they're using this example, but again, even their example is really, really dated. Because what is the structure of the atom? Well, you have electrons, protons, right? So, okay, there you have positive and negative, electrons and protons. But then you also have the neutron, and the neutron is neutral. And not only is the neutron neutral, but then the neutron is composed of quarks. And quarks don't work simply through the attraction and repulsive forces of electromagnetism, but they work on what's called a color force. So they're trying to simplify things a lot, and they are, not taking into account neutral neutrons, quarks, things like this. And they're trying to really pare it down into, just positive and negative, like male and female. And but you see why it can be helpful to describe things in this way, because it's really easy to understand. But when something's easy to understand, you miss out on important complex ideas. So this is in perfect accordance with the old Rosicrucian doctrine that the positive pole of magnetism and electricity, for both were well known to the ancient alchemists, were masculine, and the negative pole of the same was feminine. But unfortunately, the term positive and negative, respectively, are used with the wrong implication, and much confusion results therefrom. For instance, the term positive is used to indicate strength and reality, as opposed to weakness and unreality of the negative. But the real facts of physical science show us the falsity of such an interpretation of these terms. The so-called negative pole of the battery is really the pole of generation, or the production of new forms and energies. The best authorities now prefer to use the term the cathode pole in place of the negative word, the negative. The word cathode being derived from the Greek word meaning descent, the path of generation, etc. From the cathode pole of the battery emerged the great swarms of electrons, ions, or corpuscles, and from the same pole also emerged the wonderful rays which have played such an important part in modern physics. The cathode pole of the battery is the mother of all that strange brood of new forms of matter which have appeared to confute the old materialist theories and to destroy the old conceptions of science. The cathode pole should in reality and truth be called the female pole, and the positive the male, for such terms truly represent their true respective offices. Modern science also teaches that the electrons, which are composed of negative female electricity, frequently become detached from its male companions, corpuscles, and start on an independent career. In terms a union with a masculine corpuscle, and gaining in a new set of creative activity is begun. When the female corpuscle unites with the new masculine one, a strange phenomenon occurs. The corpuscles begin vibrating and circulating around each other, and the result is the birth of a new atom, in which is combined the masculine and feminine energies in some particular proportion. The atom thus formed does not manifest the properties of free electricity, but manifests an entirely new set of properties. The process of detachment of the feminine electrons is called ionization, and arising from such detachments and formation of new unions result the varied phenomenon of heat, electricity, light, magnetism, etc. So, again, do you see where, this is really easy to understand? The pairings of the electrons and protons, it's like male and female, and, attraction, repulsion. But do you also see the danger? Because then you could say, if that's true, then homosexuality must be wrong. Because you can't have masculine with masculine, because then attraction won't occur, and then that must be against nature. That must be opposed to nature. So homosexuality and lesbian, that must be wrong. No. So do you see where it's an interesting metaphor, and it kind of helps, but you can derive very wrong conclusions if you take it literally. So in the same way, the varied phenomena of chemical attraction and chemical affinity arise from the manifestation of sex on the atomic plane. Though science has not as yet perceived this to be the truth, science teaches that there are marriages, divorces, and remarriages among the atoms. But it hesitates to go further and assert that this is a part of the universal sex manifestation. But this announcement must come in time, for the evidence is overwhelmingly convincing. The explosive properties of certain substances really result from a divorce of the atomic and molecular properties, the detachment of the male and female particles under the influence of a stronger attraction. Okay, so now do you see how they're now talking about, they're putting it in terms of marriage and divorce. So you can see how this makes certain concepts easy to understand, right? The explosive properties of certain substances are the result of a divorce of the atomic and molecular parties. The detachment of the male and female particles under the influence of a stronger attraction. Right? If you have a stronger attraction, there's a divorce. So you can, in terms of like a marriage, like, oh, wow, well, I'm attracted to this other partner more, so we're going to get divorced because the attraction is stronger. So you can see the metaphor they're making. I don't like it. I don't like this metaphor. I think it's really confusing, and it's going to lead people to form the wrong conclusions about real-life partnerships, real-life marriages, real-life, sexuality and gender. So the attachment of the male and female particles under the influence of a stronger attraction and the formation of the different substances result from the attractive unions of certain male and female elements of matter. Alchemy has always known this to be a fact. It remains for modern science to corroborate and reaffirm the vagaries of the old alchemists regarding this important fact of nature. So again, the dialectic is infinitely more accurate in explaining this. Because the dialectic is all about thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And from this, higher degrees are born. So the antithesis and the thesis can look very, very different depending on what level of the dialectic that you're at. It's not always this, male and female sort of thing. It has always been admitted by science that there was sex manifest in plant life as well as by animal life, but the mineral life was not given the benefit of the manifestation of the universal principle of sex. But recent discoveries have forced upon scientists the fact that in the crystallization of minerals, there is an unmistakable evidence of the presence and activity of sex. And in the near future, it will be found that all the other changes in minerals are the result of sex attraction or repulsion. And as we shall see in a subsequent chapter of this book, there is the activity of sex on the mental planes of life. In short, on each and every plane of life, physical and mental, or spiritual, there is found present and active the universal principle of sex in some of its phases and forms. So on every aspect of life, there is, even on mental, there is the aspect. So we talk about this in my book, The Path of Shadow, like mental sex. But it's not this male, female, very simplistic sort of thing. It's simply a unification and an experience of that unification. It's a coming together. It's a coming together of opposites and experiencing a unity. So is sex manifested on all planes of existence? Yes. As the experience of a unity coming together, a pleasurable one at that, a beautiful one, and experienced in different ways. But it's not this, it must be male and female and that sort of thing. So hopefully that makes sense. So does sex manifest on all planes of existence? Yes. Is it this male, female, necessarily this male-female dichotomy? No, it's the unification of opposition. Not even opposition, but just the experience of unity. Okay, so a full understanding of this important fact would revolutionize the conception of modern science and render practically many important ideas which now exists merely as dreams in the minds of the advanced scientists. To those who cannot see this plainly, we would say it is admitted that all physical and mental phenomena depend for activity upon the law of attraction. When it is discovered the law of attraction proceeds along the line of sex and sex alone, then it is seen that all activity is sex activity. So is all activity sex activity? Well, I mean, if you conceptualize activity as the interplay of the interplay of unity and division. All reality, right, is the interplay of unity and division, symmetry and asymmetry. Symmetry and asymmetry. Had the world's soul remained neuter, there would have been no universal manifestation or creation. It was necessary that the principle of sex should appear in order that creation should begin. I mean, yes, that's true in a certain sense. Unity had to be broken by division for the universe to appear. It is only by the constant and continuous action and reaction of the two sex principles, in nature, antithesis and thesis, antithesis, in nature that creation, process, becoming, and change is possible. And as all things are but the products of change, process, becoming, and creation, it follows that without sex there would have been to things in the universe, and that even the world's soul would have abided apart, alone, and single until the end of its days. With the introduction of sex came the beginning of generation and creation, under which the one became the many, and sameness became variety and diversity. The ancient teachings furnish the only logical explanation of creation. The one becomes the two, and from the two proceed the many. So, it seems to me that the Rosicrucians were heavily influenced at a certain point by ideas from Hegel and Kant. Obviously not in the beginning, because they claim to have started a long, long time ago. But at least what is written here, this is clearly influenced by Kant and Hegel. And it looks like they're trying to explain things in really simplistic terms by taking the complicated idea of Hegel, because clearly they're, through the process becoming, right? Becoming, it's clearly Hegelian. But this is thesis and antithesis. So they're trying to interpret the idea of thesis and antithesis through the lens of male and female. And I get why they're trying to do it, because they're trying to communicate to the public and make it easy to understand. And most people aren't going to sit there and try to understand the dialectic, but they'll be able to understand male and female to a certain degree. So to take away from this, I just want to get it across that, yeah, metaphorically we can learn from this, but don't take it as literal. It's the process of the interplay of opposites, unity and division, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, spiraling up to higher and higher degrees of synthesis. And we have the very interesting symbols of the circle and the cross. The Ankh is a very cool symbol as well. And we can see how the source formula just clears this up. Right? We can look at the source formula. In the source formula, we can see the unity and division in there. We can see the positive and negative. We can see the waves resulting from attraction and repulsion of the interplay of opposites. And we can understand it so much better. And this is why Hyperionism and ontological mathematics is so important, because we can understand things so much better, so much more precise, and without the misunderstanding that some of these symbolic interpretations give. So the next part is entitled The One and the Many, and I have to take a piss. So I'm going to go to the restroom, and while I do so, ask your questions in the comments, okay? So let me pull up the comments. Okay, so I have the well, you can't see them right now, but I have the comments on screen. Ask your questions. I'm going to go use the restroom. When I come back, I'm going to spend some time in the chat answering questions. If you are on Facebook, come on over to YouTube right now. Like, share, subscribe. This is where I'm interacting in the comments. So that's where to do it, okay? And I'll be back. Hello. Hello, hello. Oh no. Oh no. I don't know what you guys are talking about. All I see is that I see that I hope Morgue gets to read this, though. He'll have a good laugh. What weird things are you guys discussing now, huh? You guys always... Let me see. Let me see what it is. And remember, guys, if you're on Facebook, come on over to YouTube. That's where I'm interacting in the comments. And hit subscribe. If you do it, let me know in the comments on YouTube, and I'll shout you out. I will shout you out. You know you want a shout out. So go do it. Help us with our million monad march. All right. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through here. Welcome, Stone Bull. I'm glad you could make it. Yeah, so Skeeter Lentil says, in line with recognizing how limitations of gender and sexuality affect philosophical theory, we see why it is important to elevate and inflate non-binary existence and gender spectrums. Yeah, it's just we want to show that all of these modalities of living life and experiencing life are perfectly valid and fine. And we just want to be very, very careful about what we say to... Because, right, like, look, if we say, oh, the universe is male and female principles, this is metaphorical, right? But what's that like? That's very similar to saying God created Adam and Eve. Because we could metaphorically take God creating Adam and Eve being like, oh, male and female principles. But what have religious people done? What religious people then go, oh, well, Adam and Eve, then homosexuality is a sin because God created Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve, right? So we want to be really, really careful, because if we say that reality is just these masculine and feminine principles, then I guarantee you're going to get people who go, oh, well, then homosexuality is wrong. So it's useful to understand it in this way. It's useful, but we just have to recognize that metaphor is metaphor, right? We just have to recognize metaphor as metaphor. And we can use metaphor as metaphor when it's helpful. We just always have to know that it is. Because we talk about God and stuff like that. And all this is metaphor. And it's okay. We can do that as long as we clearly know that we're talking about representations. She-Wolf, and Ian Minnick, thank you for helping us wake up the world. She-Wolf says you're talking about sex to a bunch of people in confinement. Yes, my apologies. I'm sorry if it's a sexually frustrating stream. Ian Minnick says, is the female energy and male energy the same thing? Well, look, if we're being metaphorical, right? If we're being metaphorical, right? You could say, well, there's so much masculine energy in the world right now. We need more feminine energy. So what does that mean? Metaphorically, that means, okay, we live in a world of dominance and like division and dominance, and we need more love and compassion and unity. But you see, that's very, very, very metaphorical. There isn't literally, you can't point to a waveform and go, that's a female wave, and point to another one and go, that's a male wave. No, I mean, we have sines and cosines, but it's not like a sine is a male and a cosine is a female or something like that. No, you just have energy, you just have waveforms, and you have the combination of you have the combination of these waveforms. And we can express the interaction and the interplay of the dialectic in these terms if we so wish. Yeah, that's a great way. See, so the lady says, I love that all of reality is unity, and we love it so much that we do it over and over forever. Yeah. That's a great way of thinking about it. Reality is, this journey from division to unity, from division to unity. And I gave this quote by Aleister Crowley that I love so much, something along the lines of, I divide myself for the chance of union so I may experience love again, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing it, but something along the lines of, I divide myself for the chance of union so I may experience love again. So yeah, it's like having that divine experience of love and unity infinitely through these infinite cycles. Oh, that's nice of you, Joanna. Joanna says, you look very effeminate, Morgue, but very masculine and divinely all at once. Yeah, thank you. I like that. That's a nice compliment. I appreciate that. Thank you. Sandra says, we are all nodes along different points on a spectrum, which just makes up the collective. Yes, indeed. Someone said, what? Special donation that I deleted? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I can't delete donations. I don't know what you mean. Luke Dillon says, so is there a such thing as permanent unity? No. I mean, the only thing that is permanently united is the source itself. So let me, okay. Let me, I mean, yes and no. Let me put it this way. Once again, let's say that you have the source and the hologram. Okay? So that's how hologram works. You have the light source, you have the holographic plate, and then you have the hologram it produces. So the source is here, and it produces the hologram. And the hologram is the world of diversity and change. But the source is always changeless and united. Okay, so in that sense, yes, there is always unity from the perspective of the source. So in musical terms, the the holos, the world of change, is the song, and the source is the piano. The piano never changes. The piano and the piano keys and the notes, those notes are always the same. Those keys are always the same. So that is always the same. That is changeless. Those are always united. But the song that results from the interplay of those notes is constantly changing. So good question. And you can see how in many of these questions, there is no real yes or no answer. And why is that? That's because language wants to put things in boxes. Human language wants to have a yes or no, a this or a that. Mathematics is all about motion and combination. And so it's hard to put it in language and can only be expressed mathematically. Ian Minnick, thank you for helping us wake up the world. I once heard that female energy was a circular force where male energy is a linear force. What's your take on that? Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we've been discussing. The Rosicrucians say that they represent the female with circular, and the male as being the linear or cross. It's just metaphor. So again, I once heard that female was circular, where male is linear. That's just I know a lot of spiritualists talk about this. A lot of it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, and I see why they say it. But it is a metaphor. I know that there's a really cool graphic. I don't think I have it though. But yes, metaphorically speaking, you are correct about it being circular versus linear. But that's not literally true. A circular force is a circular force, and a linear force is a linear force. By saying one is female and one is male is applying a human conception to it. Oh, very interesting, Chris. So Chris says, gender is a very hard topic for me because I am transgender. So my mirror is very difficult right now. I'm not sure how to work with it. So I'm hoping that you've watched my video on the mirror self. But yeah, I can see why you would say that. But this is why we have the mirror self and not the anima animus of Jungian psychology. Because that would be... Okay, so the mirror self absolutely would apply to transgender individuals. And so it would be a ratio. Man, that's a really, really cool thing that you brought up. And I would love to talk about that because the mirror self can absolutely be applied to all genders. And probably, you're probably, I don't want to label or make any assumptions, but it wouldn't surprise me if your mirror self is a lot more integrated than the average person, because you've probably had to explore how you feel about gender a lot more than the average person. Again, I don't want to put words in your in your mouth or try to define your personal experience, but most likely I would take the guess that you're probably beginning to be more integrated than the average person. Since you've had to ponder these things more than the average person. So that's very cool. Yeah, Ruth says, I am divided for love's sake for the chance of union. That is the quote by Aleister Crowley. Thank you for putting the actual quote in there for me, Ruth. Thank you. Yes, I am divided for love's sake for the chance of union. I love that. I love it. 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 Aleister Crowley got a lot of things wrong. And he did some not so nice things, but he also was beautifully poetic and got some had some fantastic intuitions, and that element I love that statement, that beautifully poetic statement by Crowley. Hey Sandra, you keep saying check your super chats, but I've answered them as far as I know. I wonder if perhaps it lags a little bit for you, Sandra, because you usually tell me to check my super chats, but as far as I know, I've answered them all. Yeah, so Chris says, I would completely agree. I have had ups and downs and having to figure out who I am, so I'm learning a lot. Awesome. That's really great. That's cool. Yeah, being non-binary, I understand. The reason why I talk about this so much is because I know gender is an important topic. And to be misgendered or told that you're wrong in somehow is really alienating and really frustrating, and I don't want anyone to have to go through that or try and use a misinterpretation of philosophy to try and justify something like that, because that's absolutely bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. So, really cool. Okay. May Lewis says it would be awesome if you could do a video on that subject. My nephew started his transition a little over a year ago, and I think it would be cool to be able to pass any helpful information on. Yeah, I don't know what... I mean, I could talk about things from my perspective as being non-binary. Yeah, I would consider... that's definitely something I would consider. I think it's important. Chris says, maybe I should try to do more art and comics about feelings more. My art is still growing, and I hope to be an animator someday. I hope to spark a change somewhere and make the world a better place. I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, do you see how this is a great embodiment of you wanna actualize yourself by learning how to create art, comics, and but also Chris wants to spark change somewhere in the world and make the world a better place through their art. So you see how cool that is. That's great. I really like Chris's attitude. Chris wants to understand and integrate their mirror self. They want to work on themselves and understand themselves better. They want to cultivate a skill, and they want to use that skill to change the world and make it a better place. That's what every one of us should be doing. That's what everyone should be. That's what this is all about, right? So I love this attitude about self-actualization, learning a skill, cultivating the self, and using that to make a change in the world. That's awesome attitude. Yeah, great. Yes, I did. I did indeed, Sandra. Joanna says, when did you become non-binary, Morgue, or have you always been this way? Well, I mean, I always have. I just didn't know what it was or have a word for it. I just always felt very, very uncomfortable being labeled a certain way, very, very gender specific. For example, when you know you'd be in a group setting and sometimes they'd say something like, oh, all the men go on this side of the room and all the women go on this side of the room. I would feel very uncomfortable, and yeah, it's really weird. So I always felt very uncomfortable identifying purely as masculine or someone or yeah. I've always felt uncomfortable. I just didn't really realize that there was a word for it or whatnot until later. And what it was, I don't know. It's not like there was one day where I went, oh, hey, you know what? I'm non-binary today. It was just something I've always been and explored it more and more. And it just evolved, you know, so. Philip Shope says, create those catalysts for world change indeed. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes, indeed. And you, Philip, create some amazing catalysts yourself, my friend. I love the posts that you make in the outer circle. Wow, Chris. So Chris says... Chris, you're awesome. So Chris says, oh my God, I hated that. I never felt right with the girls, and guys always treated me different. It sucked. I had to go to rehab and was forced with the girls for a while until I spoke up. But yeah, rehab. Yeah, yeah, I know. I know. Man, I'm glad that you did speak up. Jeez. Yeah, I completely... I relate to exactly what you're saying. This whole... yeah, like, oh, you're a guy, so go with the guys and play sports. I hated that. I felt so awkward and uncomfortable. Yeah, no thank you. No thank you. If someone wants to do that, if you know, there's nothing wrong with identifying, you know, as masculine or feminine or cis or whatever. That's totally fine. It's just not for me, and I didn't like being forced into that box. I always felt so weird about it, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand why. Did not understand why, especially when I was very, very young. When I was very young, it was very confusing. Yeah, that's a really... So Ian Minnick says, I am too much of a wimp to experience transgenderism at this level of technology. When re-sleeving technology becomes available, then I would consider it. So I don't know what re-sleeving actually is. I think that's something from a movie. But yeah, this is something I say all the time. I mean, think about in the future when we can change our bodies, just, you know, when technology and consciousness has advanced so far where we can just change our bodies like clothing. We'll be able to experience masculine and feminine bodies or whatnot any day, however we're feeling. And when that happens, I mean, the idea of fixed gender is just going to vanish. It's just going to vanish at that point because we'll be able to change our bodies just like we change clothes. And just like, oh, today I feel like wearing black, or today I feel like wearing blue, or today I feel like wearing green. Today I feel like expressing myself very dark because I'm feeling depressed. Or today I feel like wearing a sunflower pattern because I'm feeling bright and happy or something. We'll be able to change bodies so easily. These old limiting ideas will just completely vanish. So that's something that will, you know, completely revolutionize our conception. Tony Ortega, welcome. I'm glad you were able to join us. Yeah, so Philip Shope says, I've always had a hard time being around the more alpha male or super masculine types too. I have always felt more comfortable around feminine or androgynous types. Be a man can be very damaging. And then Susan Mitchell says, the be a man thing is really strange. What does that even mean? Agreed, wholeheartedly. I relate 100%. It's very toxic. You know, be a man up. You know, hide your feelings. Don't be such a girl. Like, do you see how that's even used in a negative way, right? Like, don't man up is used as a positive thing, and don't be such a girl. You're using girl as an insult. Well, fuck that. Like, that's so stupid. I'll be like a girl if I want, because there's nothing weak about being feminine. Femininity is a fantastic thing. So is masculinity. They're both fantastic, but you know, I will not stand for the female gender being used as an insult. How fucking ridiculous is that? Don't be such a girl. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck that. It's a powerful thing. And so is being a male. There's nothing wrong with being a male. Being a male is a powerful thing too. Or either or none. It's just like stop using one or the other as an insult. This world is weird. Chris says, I'm still learning to be okay with my femininity because I do like painting my nails. See, that's awesome. Yeah, like, just who cares about the rules? Like, fuck all the rules, you know? Like, it's so stupid. Fuck all the rules. You don't... I used to paint my nails all the time. I haven't lately, but I used to all the time. That's awesome. Who cares? It's a color. It's a color. Jesus Christ, people. Like, people flip out over something like that. Oh my god, your nails are... Oh my god, they're a different color? How stupid. Like, what? It's so stupid. Humans are weird. Oh no, I'm sorry about that, Chris. Madam Psycho says, LMAO, why do I feel like Morgue has just had a huge monad perspective switch? This world is weird. I all the time think that this world it's how strange this world and people are. is beyond me. And that's why I love the Hyperion community, because we're working to change all that. And this is where we can have true connection and true understanding. But this world is psychotic. People kill each other rather than love one another. They hate each other. They turn children into robots instead of educating them. They tell people that they're wrong if they don't love each other in a way that the world has defined as correct. It's the most backwards, disgusting, strange. It's hell. It's hell. And that's why I keep saying that we need to reclaim our birthright. This world is our creation, and it's about time we take it back, change it from the hell that it is, and fashion it in according to our image, the image of God, because we are God, create the kingdom of heaven on earth. This is our world, and we need to rip it away from the rich elite 1%, the old conservative patriarchal system that turns it into a living hell, and create a beautiful new world where we have that Abraxian consciousness, where we can be free to understand, grow, love, learn, and help each other do so in a healthy and transcendent environment. And once again, there is nothing at all wrong with heterosexuality or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with it at all. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with asexuality, heterosexuality. It's all fine. As long as everything is consensual and everything's all good there, it's totally fine. Metem Psycho says, we are fallen. Yes, absolutely. We are those who are fallen. We are the fallen angels here to build the kingdom of heaven on earth. That is what we are here to do. So I want to read this next chapter because it goes into what we've been, it sort of goes well and it's really short. So I want to go through this real quick, because it kind of brings everything to, not really a conclusion, but it fits with everything. So the one and the many. In the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, we find the following fourth aphorism: the one becomes many. The unity becomes diversity. The identical becomes variety. Yet the many remains one, the diversity remains unity, and the variety remains identical. In this fourth aphorism of creation, the Rosicrucian is directed to apply his attention to the concept of the world soul, the first manifestation of the eternal parent, as a one manifesting as many, a unity manifesting as diversity, an identical manifesting as variety. Yet notwithstanding such manifestation, remaining ever one, unity and identical. So again, we can understand this through the lens of Hyperionism as, so here we have, this is the one and the many. It is the one, and when the many act in unity, it is a unity. But when each node begins to express individuality, unity fractures, and the one becomes many. So it's always one and many at the same time, right? Do you see how this is always one and many at the same time? However, when the many are 100% harmonious, it's one in a different way. Do you see? It's one. It's a harmonized one, rather than a disharmonious one. When the nodes are no longer in harmony, it's the many, because they're all acting under their own individual impulses and impetus. So, in a sense, it's always a one and a many, but the many can act as individuals or they can act as a harmonious one. And it is when the one, as a harmonious one, begins to divide, and by divide we mean the nodes begin to exhibit individualization, that's when space and time is born. That is when the world of asymmetry is born. This concept of the world soul, so manifesting itself in manifoldness, diversity, and variety, yet remaining one, unity, and identical, is represented by the Rosicrucians by the symbol of a small circle within a larger circle. The smaller circles being filled with tiny points or centers of manifestation. The outer circle is, of course, the infinite unmanifest. The smaller circle is, of course, being the world soul, and the smallest dots or points being the individualized centers of being and activity manifested by the world soul. That all beings are in truth but expressions of the one being, centers of consciousness, forms, and activity within oneself is a fundamental tenet of all occult and esoteric teaching. That all being is one, all life, one, all form, one, all consciousness, one, is known to all true disciples of the occult and esoteric teachings of the past and present, Oriental, philosophical, and theological. Hidden behind under the orthodox exoteric teachings, there is always to be found this insistence upon essential oneness on the part of the inner teachings of all schools. We're gonna talk about this. So this is the symbol that they use. Okay? Now you can see that it is kind of similar to our symbol. Yes? However, I'm going to show you where they go very, very wrong. Because here's where they go very, very wrong. They see all these different dots. They view these dots as being not eternal, finite, contingent. So here's how they envision it. Imagine the one as being a sea, and then you have many bubbles in the sea. Well, those bubbles can actually, they may look like they're individual, but ultimately they melt away into the sea. That's how the Rosicrucians believe it. That's not how we know it to be true. Another way of thinking about it is, again, think of how they would think about it, is think of the ocean. Now think of whirlpools in the ocean. Well, each whirlpool will seem like its own thing, but really it can melt away into the ocean. That's what the Rosicrucians believe and are saying here. That's what a lot of Eastern philosophy, New Age philosophy, Buddhism philosophy believes. A lot of New Age spiritualists believe that. That is not correct. So that says that the one is fundamental, and it can make little bubbles within itself, but those bubbles aren't eternal. They can vanish again into the one. No. How it is in Hyperionism and ontological mathematics. Each node is a mind, and each one of them is eternal. They never dissipate or vanish. Okay? Each one is eternal, and they form the one. Do you see how in this conception, if you removed the individual nodes, the one would no longer exist? Well, if you have the bubble conception, right, if you have the ocean and the bubbles, if you remove the bubbles, the ocean still exists. It's still there. That's incorrect. You see, we know that it's not like that. We are not dependent on the one for existence. The one is dependent on us for existence. You see how if we removed each one of us, the one would vanish. The one is us. It's not apart from us. It's not separate from us. The one is what we are. The one depends upon us for our existence. We exist in this one system. And the one becomes conscious only through us. Okay, so this is critical to understand. This is why we have the three Hyperion perspectives. The avatar, us in a body, the monad, as an eternal individual mind, and the Abraxian, or absolute perspective, us as the collective coming to self-consciousness. This is critical to understand, because the drops in the ocean thing is not accurate. But you see how it's close. It's close, right? You would think. This is why so many people get trapped in New Age thought, Eastern thought, these religious thoughts. Even the symbols, they're close. So you can see how many people get led off track here. But it's so important. So please, 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 please take the time to understand that important difference. That there is but one life and not many lives is a fundamental article of all occult and esoteric faiths. The one life, moreover, is not to be thought of as dividing and splitting itself up into bits, parts, and particles in order to accomplish the process of creation and the manifestation of the world. Instead, it is to be thought of as merely reflecting itself in the many individual mirrors of expression, just as the sun reflects itself as one in the millions of falling raindrops or in a million tiny jars filled with water. There are millions of reflections of the one, but only the one in reality. Or using another figure of speech, the one may be thought of as an infinite ocean of being in which there are millions of tiny bubbles, each apparently apart and separate, but all of which are in reality but centers of activity and expression in the one great ocean. I want to say, just to reiterate, that is incorrect. That is incorrect. We are not bubbles in the ocean, right? The bubbles depend on the ocean to exist, and the bubbles can pop and vanish and be absorbed back into the ocean. No, wrong, incorrect. We are eternal minds, and the one depends on us for its existence. Again, remember, this seems similar, but they're actually opposites. That's why we're stepping into a higher state of consciousness, and we have to be super aware. This is why people will come to Hyperionism and be like, oh, this sounds like Buddhism, or oh, this sounds like Hinduism, or oh, this sounds like this New Age philosophy. Oh, no, it's like, I know why you would think that, but it's actually, in many ways, the opposite. Because this changes everything. It changes everything when you have a different conception. Separateness is, to quote a writer, but the working fiction of creation. All the apparently separated things are contained within the circle of the world soul, and the latter is contained within the circle of the infinite unmanifest. So separateness is just a different way of viewing reality. We can understand reality through diversity, through individuality, through separate nodes, or we can understand reality as all the nodes working together as subject and object united and as one mind. But remember, the one depends on us. It is because of us. It is because of us. I use this other metaphor. Imagine computers, right? Imagine that you had one computer. Now imagine that you had 100 computers. Well, each one of those computers can be running its own processing program, right? Let's say each computer, it has its own data. And it has its own information. But now let's say you take those 100 computers and you hook them all. They share all the data together, learn from each other, and through learning from each other, they all start running the same program, and they create a supercomputer. So you have all the computers that are now hooked together, linked together, and create, through the sharing of their knowledge and becoming harmonious, a supercomputer. But if you remove the computers, the supercomputer wouldn't exist. You see? Same thing with the one and the many. Abraxian consciousness is the supercomputer. Abraxian consciousness is the supercomputer. The monadic perspective is each individual computer. What's the avatar perspective? Well, that's probably like the game on the computer, right? Like, let's say each computer has a game that it's running, and so they have a little character. So you have the avatar perspective, which is the character in the game. Then you have the computer perspective, which is you as a monad, and then the supercomputer, which is Abraxian consciousness. So remember, what they're saying I disagree with very, very much. Not only is this esoteric conception of many in one and one in many a fundamental conception of the ancient esoteric and occult teachings, but the same truth in another form is presented by advanced modern science in its conception of the universal substance. Science postulates the existence of a universal substance known under many names, from which all things proceed. It matters not whether this universal substance can be called primordial substance or infinite and eternal energy or the universal ether. The fact remains that science postulates its existence as a fundamental substantial something of and in which all forms and phases of phenomenal existence are but manifestations, In the same way, those schools of transcendental philosophy, which postulates the existence of a universal mind, teach that all forms and phases of phenomenal existence are but thought forms in the universal mind, and the old Brahmanical, meaning Brahman, teachings, Hinduism, likewise teaches hold that the many exist, but as incidents of the dream or meditation of the Lord High Brahma. Okay, so the fact that there is a universal substance doesn't mean that there's only one mind. What is the universal substance? Well, a monad is the universal substance in that it's a container of infinite energy. And yes, it's one universal substance, but there are many of them. So, you know, just like if you use this to let's say that bricks were the one universal substance. That doesn't mean you can have many bricks. You can still have one universal substance, but many of them. Same case. What is the universal substance? Well, monads. Monads are containers of indestructible infinite units of energy. They are the universal substance of existence. That's fine. That doesn't imply that there's only one mind and that's it. No, because you can have many of them, all interacting with each other, which gives rise to ultimate reality. Which gives rise to the one. They are ultimate reality, which gives rise to the one, the universe, and everything that we experience. And holy shit, El Baby, my God. David, my God. Okay, hold on here. Let me jump into the comments. First of all, okay, and Tony. Okay, so Tony, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Will you be writing any more books in the future? I plan on it. There's a particular book that I actually do want to write, a handbook of sorts. I just don't have time right now because of the video creation and how fast we're growing. Guys, we're growing so fast, it's crazy. And I'm trying to keep up with it through creating videos and everything. So do I want to write a book in the future? Yes, I do. I already have planned on what it is that I want to write. I don't know when I can get to it. Simply because of time, but I'm working on it. I hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but we'll see. And David, my God, David super chatted $200, motherfuck. I always say, so David is the Hyperion Mr. Beast, apparently. You are the Mr. Beast of Hyperionism. Thank you so much, David. Again, I can't tell you how much that means to me. You get party lights because of that. Oh, geez, those are really fast lights. Slow the fuck down. Okay, that's better. My God, what did you say? Great work on everything that you do. I'm sorry I'm so late in the live chat. It's okay, my friend. And missing some other live chats, trying to catch up on the replays. Oh, enjoy the replays. You are amazing. Thank you for all you do. You're very welcome. I'm really happy that you enjoy my work, David, and thank you so much for supporting and helping us wake up the world. That means the world to me. My God, that's so fucking awesome. Let's throw some. What should we do for? What should we do for? Let's send. What shall we send? Let's do the sign of New Terra. We're talking a lot about world creation. So let's do the sign of New Terra for David. Thank you so much, David. You have the top donor spot. Fucking fantastic. You are awesome, my friend. Hell yes. I love seeing all those signs of New Terra for David. You're awesome, David. Thank you so much. Okay. Let us continue. David says, you are all awesome and glad to be part of your community. Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely, my friend. So, yes, I love seeing all the signs of New Terra for David. That's for you, my friend. And let's... The lady says, we need all of us, all of our unique variety of expression. It fills the spectrum of the source. Now let's continue, because this section isn't too long, and I just want to, because it's really important. So once again, guys, I'm sure that most of you already understand it, but please, if you're having a hard time with it, take the necessary time to understand the difference between the many depending on the one, or the one depending on the many. Because you see, it's really opposite. They're opposite ways of thinking. So it's super important to understand it. So, in all forms, phases, and schools of philosophy, we find this insistence upon the present and existence of a one something, of which all are but manifestations. Well, the one something is a monad, but there are myriad monads, and through their interactions, everything is a manifestation of. So, what they're saying is true. There is a one something, but there are many one somethings. Think of it this way, okay? Again, like a brick or like a Lego. Well, there's a one there. Think of a brick. There's a one something, but you can have many of those one somethings. And yes, everything are just manifestations of that one something. If all that exists in the world are bricks, everything that you construct will be manifestation of bricks. It doesn't mean that there is only one brick, right? Okay. In fact, as the wisest philosophers have informed us, the whole purpose of philosophy is to discover the one unconditioned ground of all that exists conditionally. Well, what is that? In Hyperionism, the one unconditioned ground is the principle of sufficient reason, but the principle of sufficient reason is what gives rise to zero, and zero is the mathematical expression of the sufficient reason, and a monad is zero, and there can be myriads of zeros, because 0 plus 0 is still 0. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is still 0. So that's why, yes, there is a one unconditioned ground, but this one unconditioned ground is what allows for the existence of myriad minds. So they're both right and wrong at the same time. They're right in saying that there's an unconditioned ground, but they're wrong in saying that this implies that there can literally only be the one, and that the many is an illusion. All philosophically worthy of the name is monistic in essence. Hyperionism is a monism, because all there is mind. A leading authority on the history of philosophy informs us the monism is, in its strictest sense, a name applicable to any system of thought which sees the universe the manifestation or working of a single principle. Hyperionism is a monism. What's the single principle? Mind, or the source formula. That's perfectly fine. Tailor-made, thank you for helping us wake up the world. Ian Minnick, thank you for helping us wake up the world, says Hyperionism is way better than any system we live by, but is it the most direct way of deploying our energy correctly? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It 100% is, because it incorporates the dialectic, it incorporates the need to have an Abraxian consciousness and usher it in across the world. It's the most direct way of deploying it correctly. You could deploy it maybe faster in another way, but it wouldn't be correctly, and it would result in disaster. This is why we need to apply it right and correct. We need to foster a new Abraxian consciousness in the world and plant those seeds, because you can't rush a harvest, right? You can't rush, or else, you just can't, or else it won't come out correctly. So yes, Hyperionism is absolutely. Let's see. And absolutely in doing it correctly. Okay, so what we are saying here, monism is, in its strictest sense, a name applied. So just so you know, Hyperionism is a monism. It's to be precise, Hyperionism is a dual aspect idealist monism. What does that mean? Monism, mind is there is one thing. What is the one thing? mind. There can still be many minds, but there's still the concept of mind instead of matter, right? Mind, dual aspect. There's two ways that you can experience mind, or not experience, but mind has two aspects. Its mathematical formal aspect and the experience of that aspect. And idealism means mind, okay? So monism, one thing, mind, and two ways of experience, or two ways that mind is. Mathematically formal and experiencing, and through experiencing that via qualia. But that does not mean, even though it's a monism, that does not mean that there can't be myriad minds. So again, using our really crude analogy of bricks, if you said that all that existed are bricks, that's still a monism, because there's only one thing, bricks. But there are many bricks, right? So even though our monism says that there is only mind, it doesn't mean that there is only one mind. There is only mind, but there are many minds, many monads, units of mind, bricks, many bricks, okay? Okay. So monism is, in its strictest sense, a name applicable to any system of thought which sees in the universe the manifestation or working of a single principle. Such a unity may be at once the tacit presupposition and goal of all philosophic effect, and insofar as a philosophy fails to harmonize the apparently independent and even conflicting facts of experience as aspects or elements within a larger whole, it must be held to fall short of the necessary ideal of thought. Dualism, in an ultimate metaphysical reference, is a confession of the failure of philosophy to achieve its proper task, and this is a justification of those who consistently use the word as a term of reproach. Yes, so we are not a dualistic system. Dualism is a failure. Rather, reality experiences polarity. Polarity can be... What's polarity? Well, polarity is one thing that can express itself in different ways, right? It can express itself in different ways. Like if you look at a thermometer of hot and cold, well, it's all on a spectrum. It's different degrees on one thing. And now let us take a brief glance. Let us take a brief passing glance at the Rosicrucian teaching concerning the manner in which the one proceeds to become the many, the unity to become diversity, the identical to become variety, and yet remain the one unity identity of the world's soul, unaffected and unchanged by its plunged into manifestation. Evolution we see on all sides around us, but all evolution must be preceded by involution, as all occultists and scientists know full well. So once again, if you look up the science, not the science, but if you look up at the idea of our metaphor of computers being hooked together to form a supercomputer, well, if they're forming that supercomputer, that means they're all running the same program to create a program that they couldn't run just by themselves, right? So you could say, in a certain sense, that each computer is identical because they're running the exact same program. So in a sense, each computer is identical because they're running the exact same program. However, they are still individual computers, right? So do you see how they're one and many at that point at the same time? They're still individual computers, but they're running the same program. Likewise, when we are fully actualized, we will all be individual monads, but we will all be running the same program, so to speak, that will be higher and above any program that we could have run individually, which is total and complete Abraxian consciousness, which is the universe, us, completely manifest, us as the absolute one, total, complete manifest, perfect harmony, perfect synchronicity in every single way. And my God, did someone super chat $100? Yes, you did. Thoughtbot, hilarious name, and 100. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping us wake up the world, Thoughtbot. I sound ridiculous saying that, but thank you. Wow, my God. Yeah, you get a... Well, what color shall we do for you? Blue. Blue for you. I don't know why, but I think it works. Thank you so much. Jesus. $100 super chat from Thoughtbot. What should we send? I'm going to throw up the chat. Let's send... Have we done Triscales? I don't think we've even done Triscales this stream. Let's send some Triscales over to... for Thoughtbot. Hell yes. Oh, Joanna, I'm glad that you like my music. I haven't made music in a very, very, very long time. I don't have any plans to, simply because of lack of time. I wish I had time to make music. Yes, let's have those Triscales going for Thoughtbot. Thank you, Thoughtbot. It is appreciated. Oh, that's nice of you, Ian, but I don't have time. I wish I had time to make music, but I just, you know, again, like someone asked, was it Tony? I think Tony asked, yeah, Tony. Tony asked if I'm going to write a book. Yeah, I am, when I get the time. So see, when I do have some free time, I'd much rather create a book than a song. Well, I mean, I'd love to create a song, but information. I must get information out there. It's why it's so important. Joe S. Hey, Morgue, how's it going? Going well. By the way, guys, if you're on Facebook, come on over to YouTube. Come on over to YouTube. Subscribe. Like. Tell me you're doing it in the YouTube chat. I'll shout you out. Help us with our Million Monad March. March to a million. MMM. Triple M. Hashtag MMM. We're going for a million. And smash like, guys. We're at 293 likes. Let's see if... Come on. We got to get 300. We got to get 300, guys. Hit like. So we're continuing, and the rest of this chapter is short. I just want to get through it because, again, this concept is so important. And remember, go to those computer versus supercomputer analogy. The supercomputer cannot exist without the individual computers. You see how there's a big difference? The Rosicrucian idea would be like trying to say that the supercomputer exists and it creates the illusion of individual computers. And no, that's not the case. So no, in Hyperionism and ontological mathematics, it's the individual minds that exist that harmonize and link together to form the superconsciousness, that form the Abraxian consciousness. Because do you see how we're starting to do that? We're becoming the avatars of Abraxas. Right now, through Hyperionism, we're running the Abraxian program. We're starting to run that Abraxian program. And that's the common thread that will unite all humanity together, that will unite all the computers together. Right now, everyone's running their separate program. They're running the Christian program, the Hindu program, the Buddhist program, the capitalist program, the materialist program. Okay. And we can still have diversity, but we need to have... Diversity is awesome. We need more diversity than what we have. But when we start running that underlying Abraxian program that shows that, hey, we are all part of a unified system, so we need to be working together, right? Once we all realize that we all live in a unified system, are reflections of each other, and need to be working together, do you see now how each one of us now has that same idea, right? It's like each one of us has installed that program, which is the common thread, which results in creating a unified world. And it doesn't destroy diversity. It allows us to be more diversified, because now we know that we should be free to express ourselves in however we want. And we don't have to be like, oh, well, homosexuality is evil. Or, you know, you can't wear that type of clothing because of this and that. You see, it actually allows for greater exploration and greater diversity. And why do we want greater exploration and greater diversity? Because will learn and grow from each other, and that accelerates our evolution. As each one of us expresses ourselves in a unique way, we learn and grow from each person's expression. Okay, so hopefully that's making sense here. Modern science, in its pursuing its discoveries along the lines of evolution, has almost entirely ignored the twin activity of manifestation, which is known as involution. Not so the ancient occultists, however, for they knew full well the truth so forcibly expressed in the words of a modern, plain-speaking philosopher who said, "You can never get out of a thing anything which is not already involved in it." And to the ancient student of the esoteric teachings, any idea of evolution, which did not begin with the teaching concerning involution, was like the play of Hamlet with Hamlet left out. There is an ancient saying which runs, "That which is evolved must have previously been involved." And in this simple statement is condensed a volume of important occult lore. The term, and this is important, the term involved means to wrap up, to cover, to hide, etc. The term evolve means to unwrap, to unfold, to unroll, etc. With these meanings in mind, the student sees at once that before a thing can be unwrapped, unfolded, or unrolled, it must first have been wrapped up, folded up, or rolled up. We must not lose sight of the meaning attached to the simple terms, no matter how many high-sounding terms are substituted for these. The same thing remains the same thing, no matter how many new names are attached to it. The esoteric teachings, as has been said, clearly and positively state that before there began the wonderful process of evolution from simple to more complex forms of manifestation, from lower to higher, there must first have been an involution or infolding of the world's soul into the simple, gross, elemental forms of matter. That by vibrations must have been first lowered before they can have been increased. So yes, basically what this means is that we have the one, and at the beginning, we have the one that begins to, we have that super consciousness that begins to break up into individuality again, and this is involution. Okay, so evolution is us evolving, to higher and higher states of consciousness, more and more symmetry. But then once we succeed in achieving the omega point and perfect symmetry, after that, then it will be asymmetry, which is involution, right? The opposite, the breaking up of symmetry, of harmony. So there isn't just evolution, there's also involution. Involution followed by evolution. You go from perfect unity, then involution occurs until you achieve maximum disunity. Then at the point of maximum disunity, evolution starts to occur, where unity starts to form again. So you have involution, which is a breaking up, maximum disunity, then evolution, which is maximum unity. So you can imagine, hey, excuse me. I just want to get this real quick. So imagine again, perfection. Imagine the Rubik's Cube being solved. Imagine, I can't solve it right now, but pretend that it's solved right now. That's like each one of us being in perfect unity. But then involution occurs. What is involution? Well, it's the breaking up of harmony. It's mixing up the cube. While involution is occurring, the cube is being mixed up. And eventually, you'll reach a point where you can't get mixed up anymore. You'll have maximum disunity. At that point, things start to reverse, and evolution occurs, and evolution is the return to unity, and that's the Rubik's Cube returning to symmetry, returning to its original state. So that's one way that we can understand it very simplistically. And hey, this is a good example too, also, is the one and the many. The one is, the one depends on the individual nodes, each one of us being an individual node. But you could, if you could imagine each one of these, if each one of these were also a Rubik's Cube itself, that would be even better. Because if you were a mini Rubik's Cube, You need to solve your own self. You need to actualize yourself before you can then become in harmony with others too. So does that make sense? Like if each one of these bricks was a Rubik's Cube unto itself, that would be like you as a mind. So you need to work on, as you evolve and gain consciousness, that's like you working on your own individual cube, and then creating more harmonious world societies and working together as a collective is like all of us then working as the cube itself. When the lowest point in the scale of involution was reached, then the law of rhythm asserted itself and the upward climb began. The first movement of evolution began to manifest itself. And at this precise point, there was begun the manifestation of what may have been termed individualization, or the forming of centers of activity and consciousness. The world soul descended into the depth of involution and mass. I don't know why that's highlighted. That's weird. What happens when you click on this? What happens when you click on this? What does this link to? Oh, it's just a difference. Oh, whatever. That wasn't fun. I thought we were going to discover some secret Rosicrucian thing. But no. Anyway. And then began to emerge from the depths by an apparent splitting up process in which the active newborn centers of activity begin to assert themselves and to move upward towards self-expression. The simpler centers, which occultists know to be the centers of activity in the electrons of matter, began to form molecules. There was, of course, manifested the presence of mind within this gross matter, but only the faint glimmerings were manifested, for the gross and enveloping sheaths of matter almost smothered the mental principles involved within them. The process of evolution once began. It proceeded rapidly. Higher and higher in the scale of manifestation rose the things in a spiral process, each spiral rising above the one beneath it. And yet, in the dialectic is the spiral. And yet each proceeding apparently in a circle, as do all preceding things. In due time, the first signs of the mineral kingdom began to show themselves, building upon the basis of the submineral forms of matter. In the mineral kingdom began to manifest higher forms of life and mind. For, as the occultists know well, the mineral possessed both life and mind in a certain degree, and then later appeared the first signs of plant life, forms but slightly above those of certain crystals. When the temperature of the earth was at a point at which life is commonly believed to be impossible, there were present certain strange forms of life which may have been described as half mineral, half plant. These crystals reproduced themselves by a splitting up process and grew from the inside, as do plants. These life forms were composed of the same materials as the crystals from which they evolved, but they possessed a greater degree of life and mind. And while from one point of view they may be said to have been minerals, yet from another they may truly be said to have been plants. These strange creatures have disappeared, as have all other intermediate forms, which have played the parts of bridges in the evolutionary process. But they have left their traces in the material body of both plants and animals, for it must be remembered that even the bodies of the highest forms of plant or animal life are composed of certain chemical elements which were derived from the mineral kingdom, as for instance oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, etc. The first forms of real plant life are described by the old teachers as having been a now extinct lowly form of plant life, scarcely more than a crystal in appearance, and yet manifesting the characteristics of plant life. Then appeared the ancestors, of which are now known as the Clomacea, which are a strange group of lowly creatures comprising the characteristics of both plant and mineral life, and being found even today in the deposits upon damp rocks and barks of trees, etc. From this and simpler creatures evolved the ancestors of what are known now as angiospores, or lowest forms of plant life. We're almost done with this chapter. There's literally, 3 paragraphs? So let me just finish reading this part here, and then I'll talk about it. The process of evolution is caused by the constant striving of the life and mind within the sheaths of matter. True, the strivings to express more and still more of themselves and to mold and use the sheaths of matter in the work of self-expression. True. Protoplasm, the physical basis of plant and animal life, was evolved in this way. Then came the single-celled creature, which dwelt in the slime of the ancient ocean beds. Then forms of life composed of colonies of cells appeared, then more complex forms of cell combination, and so on, until the highest forms of life known to us today were evolved. Finally, primitive man was evolved. Then man began to improve in mind and feeling, and he is still making progress along these lines. But man of today is merely a high stage of the evolutionary process, and he in turn will be succeeded by the supermen of the future, Hyperions. And these in turn by the godlike angelic creatures, the like of whom are in existence on other and high spheres even this day. But always remember that in all the millions of types of living forms, and millions upon millions upon millions of individuals ensouling these forms, there is no real separateness. All life is one, and all life but the life of the world's soul. I mean, okay. Therefore, okay. Hold on, let me finish the paragraph. Therefore, in the symbol of the Rosicrucians, the countless points within the smaller circle, which in turn is enclosed within the larger circle, we have the first picture of the eternal parent and its first manifestation, the world's soul, the latter manifesting in the countless life forms of the world of manifestation. And the work of evolution is still underway, and the higher and higher forms of expression will proceed from within the involved being of the world's soul, which is ever striving and struggling to manifest itself in self-expression. Okay, and then the next chapter is on the universal flame of life. But the main thing, so as we can see here, I mean, the Rosicrucian doctrine is interesting, but we can see that they do get a lot wrong, which is really important, why we need to understand everything through Hyperionism and ontological mathematics. So we looked at how to correct, this whole idea of male and female, and that these are, it can be interesting to look at. But ultimately, they are metaphors. It can be really easy to say something like, oh, we need more feminine energy in the world. But as long as we just always understand that these are metaphors, because we don't want to fall into a trap of taking it as being too true, just like, oh, God created Adam and Eve, therefore homosexuality is wrong. That's super dangerous. We don't want to get caught in that way of thinking. Super dangerous. Also, we have seen that their idea of the one and the many is that the one produces the many, and the many are illusions and depend on the one for their existence. And we know through Hyperionism that once again, it is the other way around. The one depends on the many. We are all eternal minds. We are indestructible, eternal. Remember, eternal means without beginning or end. Eternal minds, monads, nodes of the cosmic mind. But the cosmic mind is dependent on us. Same thing. We can understand the Rubik's Cube being dependent on each one of its blocks. If you took away the blocks, guess what? There would be no more Rubik's Cube. Same thing with the one. Take away the many, there would be no more one. Take away the cubes, there would be no more cube. Take away the blocks, there would be no more cube. So that's very important to understand. So if this is new to you, I know many of you know this already, but if this is new to you, I highly recommend understanding this and reflecting upon it. And then also it's the analogy of the computers linking together to share information and data to form a supercomputer, a super consciousness. Not that computers are consciousness, but we're using this as monads would form a super consciousness. Computers would form a supercomputer. But you can see how through linking together, sharing information, and utilizing their processing power altogether, they're able to create a supercomputer that is both them and above them. Not above them, it is them, but more than just what an individual computer could do on its own. So the one is us, it is what we are, and we are actualizing it. We are the avatars of Abraxas. We are ushering in and want to usher in Abraxian consciousness across the world so that we may create a society that reflects this understanding, so that we may grow and learn in diversity and education and philosophy and art and expression and experience and sensuality and gender expression and everything that you could possibly imagine. As long as we are all on the same page, not hurting each other, working together under the Abraxian consciousness, understanding that we do live in that interconnected, unitary system of unity, and are striving to create a society reflective of the understanding of this Abraxian consciousness. So I'm going to jump into the comments here. So, you know what? What I'm going to do is I think that's a good place to stop. I think that's a good place to stop for this reading. However, I'm going to spend just some time with you guys in the comments. So if you have any questions, things like that, ask them now. Now's a good time. If you're on Facebook, please share this video. Okay? And come on over to YouTube. The link is in the description, or it's pinned in the comments. If the one pinned in the comments, if it doesn't work, check it out. And real quick, before I begin, I want to remind you all that if you would like to support on Patreon, you can get access to our weekly secret live streams. As well. And I'll put, that's the best way to support and where you can get access to the secret live streams. But once again, we're having one on Thursday. But once again, if you're on Facebook, come on over to YouTube, hit subscribe, let me know if you're in the comments. And now, having said that, let me actually jump into the and hit the like button, you guys. My God. Oh, well, we hit 300 likes. That's good. We hit 300 likes. We're at 312. That's good. But do more. More of the pushing of the like button. Oh, Wrath, good to see you. I hear that you're president of a club now. Congratulations. Good to see you, Wrath. Ad Astra to the Stars wants to know, is there a secret stream after? No, there isn't a secret stream tonight. The secret stream is on Thursday. Thursday, my friend. The secret streams are awesome. I love them. Wrath says, that sounds like a lot to ask humanity to strive for, but it's really not. No, it really isn't. Just humans are so fucking stupid for the most part. Humanity, I know I get angry and I say humans are fucking stupid, but ultimately, no. I mean, ultimately the goal is to help them, right? We don't want to hate humans. We love humans. We want to bring, we just want to teach them. We just want to teach them. That's the issue. They just don't know any better. They don't know any better. So when I say things like, "Oh, fucking humans," I'm joking. We shouldn't actually, the goal is to help and elevate. I'm being humorous. Wrath. Oh, it's chairman. Yes, chairman. Yes, Chris says we do love them. Just teach them how to live in peace. Yeah, I mean precisely. That's exactly what. Well said. Kaleo, if you'd like to go to Patreon, just go to, I'll put the link. The link is in the comments right there. That's how you go to Patreon. Scullywag, you're going to, wait, where did I miss that? Oh, good Nacht. Good Nacht, Scullywag. Amy, if you'd like to donate, that's very nice. You can support on Patreon. That's the best way. But you can also do it here on YouTube if you'd like by hitting the super chat button. Which is there should be a little super chat. Do you guys have the super chat icon, right? I'm assuming. Shane, which book of yours should I start with? Which book of mine should I start with? I highly recommend beginning with The Path of Shadow. If you're new to Hyperionism, begin with The Path of Shadow. Okay, so look, here's a quick rundown of So the books are at iamhyperion.com/store. So I've written more than that. But okay. So the metaphorical suicide is about destroying your old self to create your new self. Ontological mathematics is starting to get into the heavy-duty philosophy and math behind our system. Book 0 is an explanation of the nature of reality without any math involved. And the Path of Shadow is kind of like a little bit of everything. So if you don't really know what you want yet, if you're just new to it and you don't know really which one to begin with, if like, oh, well, maybe the math would be too hard, or maybe I don't know, I recommend starting with the Path of Shadow, and then you can see what parts of it you like the best, and then go from there. Oh yeah, and the Unity document. The Unity document is a free ebook. It's, it's short. It's like 15 pages, 15, 20 pages. But that's great to start with, and it is free. That's also at iamhyperion.com. I forgot. I've written a lot of things, but that is a good one. A good one to start with. Thank you for reminding me. Who reminded me of that? Adastra reminded me of that. You're very welcome, Shane. I'm glad you found it interesting. Psychotic Phantom, welcome. Remember, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. Help us march our way to 1 million. The Million Monad March. What does our Hyperion Triscale mean? It actually has many meanings. This has many meanings. If you want to know one of the meanings, watch the inner star actualization. That's one of my favorite meanings of it. Shadow self, power self, mirror self. I'm sorry, shadow self. Shadow self, mirror self, power self, all encapsulated within your higher self, the inner star, which is you as a monad. The inner star is you as a monad. So that is one meaning, but there's lots of meanings. We can also understand it as thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. But to get started, check out the video series on inner star actualization. My favorite movie, Taylor asks. My favorite movie is The Never-Ending Story. The Never-Ending Story is a fantastic movie, and my favorite movie. It's a very intelligent film. There's a lot of meta references. That's what I like about The Never-Ending Story. It's about a kid reading a book, but he's also inside the book and affecting the book at the same time. So he's reading the book, but as he reads the book, he's like also actually inside of the book and affecting the story. So you can see it's very Hyperion in a certain way, because we are the authors of our book, of the world, that have forgotten that we are the authors, and we mistake ourselves for being a character in the book. My God, David, did you donate $100 again? Jesus Christos. Jesus Christ, my friend. Thank you. What did you say? The first piece, which is the most important. Yeah, the first piece, which is the most important, comes with the soul of the individual, monad. When we realize our relationship with nature, with the universe in all of its glory, we realize that at the center of the universe dwells the great spirit, or the collective mind. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, first, usually, that's why we have the three perspectives, avatar, monadic, and absolute, or Abraxian. Usually, people, well, I mean, it's funny because you have to have all three, and you're absolutely right. People usually need to work on the monadic perspective before they can understand the Abraxian perspective, because you can't understand the monadic perspective without understanding the Abraxian perspective, because the Abraxian is the collective and it incorporates the monad. So you have to be able to understand the monad to understand Abraxas, because Abraxas is the collective, actualized and conscious. So yes, that well said, well said. And my God, my friend, $100, Jesus! I just stopped the party lights, but just with you, the party keeps on going apparently. So let's get those party lights back on. My God, thank you. Let's send some Adastras to David. My God. Living up to the Hyperion Mr. Beast name well. You are awesome, my friend. Who says my first time? Crystal says my first time on one of your lives. Welcome. I'm glad you made it. I hope that I'm sorry, I got caught up reading the comments. I hope that you're not just joining us. I hope because it's getting close to the end, but I hope that you are able to enjoy this live stream. My first live as well, Vamp Creature says. Awesome, welcome. Welcome. Glad to see so many newcomers. Love seeing all those. Joanna says, will you do live shows outdoors? What? Oh! Do you mean live streams outdoors? Is that what you mean? I've actually thought about it. Maybe. I've thought about that. I did indeed thought about that. Hey, guess what? America's crazy right now. So I was actually thinking, like, can I just go somewhere else out of the country for a while so that I can get out of the craziness of America, and I could still, I could still bring my camera equipment and stuff and still do live streams and still make videos, but just be out of the heart of this crazy pandemic insanity. And so that was something I was considering. And then I'd be like, oh, that'd be interesting. We could do outdoor live streams and things like that. But then I realized that the American passport is useless. And so you can't go anywhere because no one wants Americans, because Americans are not taking this pandemic too seriously. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I might do some outdoor live streams. I think that could be fun. I'll have to think about how to do it because I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe if I can figure out a way to do it realistically, I think it would be cool. Microcosm is new. Sarah X, thank you so much for helping us wake up the world. I see you says you are amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. Valeska says you can't go to the EU right now. They have banned Americans for a while. Yeah, it's not just the EU. It's pretty much everywhere has banned Americans. It's bad. It's bad. America is not handling this pandemic well at all. Elena says I was supposed to go to Finland next month for my birthday. That's not happening. I'm sorry to hear that. All right, my friends, I should probably go because I have some videos that I need to work on, actually, and I also need to pack book orders and things like this. I have a lot to do. My God, I have a lot to do tonight. Jeez. One of these days for the secret live streams, I should just go live with you guys while I do, have to do sort of mundane things like pack books or edit a video or something like that. I should just, for the hell of it, that'd be fun. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'm really glad that you guys were able to join us here today. This was a really important topic. As you can see, the Rosicrucians have a lot of interesting ideas, but they get a lot wrong, which is why Hyperionism and ontological mathematics is so important for understanding the nature of reality and how we need to have that Abraxian consciousness and really understand what existence is, what reality is, so we can model a reality based on that. If you haven't seen it, please go watch my latest video called The 3 Things You Must Know to Wake Up, The 3 Hyperion Perspectives. If you haven't seen it, please go watch that video. It is a Hyperion fundamental video because it explains the 3 Hyperion modes, avatar, monadic, and absolute, or Abraxian, and so important. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. Go watch it. Shout out to David for being amazing. Thank you, David. And let me just see real quick some other Thoughtbot. Thank you so much. Scollywag Studios. Fucking awesome. And so many of you guys for helping us wake up the world. That's how I'm able to continue doing my work, so it means the world to me. You have the top donor spot, David. You are awesome. Big shout out to our moderators for keeping this an amazing environment for us to be able to learn and grow and optimize together. We have a live stream on Thursday. That's when the secret live stream will be as well. And we might be doing a drunk Bible reading. I'm not going to promise it because I'm not for sure. But we might be doing a drunk Bible reading on Thursday. Maybe. We will see. And if we do, it's probably going to be absinthe, which is one of the most alcoholic drinks in the world. So, god damn it. But make sure that you are there for that. We have a new video coming out very, very soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. Again, shout out to our mods, Rowan James, Megan Eva, Susan Mitchell, and Azure. And let's see, remember to smash like and subscribe for everyone that is new. So happy to see you guys here today. What the, my lord. All right, David. David just donated another $50. Thank you, Dave. David says, good night. Thanks for all you do. Love the video of the Book of the Dead. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that. I liked making that one a lot. Very interesting. Thank you all. Hyperion, Mr. Beast out. Good night. God damn. Thank you, David. Jeez. Thank you, David. All right, let's send. I think Sign of New Terra is appropriate for David to sign out. Jesus. So thank you. Let's send those Signs of New Terra to David, the Hyperion Mr. Beast. Thank you so much, my friend. You are awesome. So remember, check out the video, the 3 Hyperion modes. It's the latest video besides this one on my channel. Go check it out right now. Maybe drunk Bible reading on Thursday. And yeah, come join us here every single Monday for our book reading. They're fantastic. I love seeing you guys here. And I will see you all very, very soon. Ad Astra, to the stars.